pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody.
Pass that, please.
We'll start with public comment.
Yep.
First on the list, Kevin McAllister.
Oh, I'm sorry, we had David from the East Hampton Star.
Huh?
We needed help. I didn't write him down. So. Yeah. Rick, he might need assistance with his flash drive.
Okay.
Or John Aldred maybe can.
Yeah, I have this if we need it. I don't know how
good.
deep you guys want me to go into it. It's a couple of maps and maybe we ought to do it?
Maps are good.
All right. All right. This is about the David Rattray in not representing the East Hampton Star. It's a private quest. What I'm looking to do is correct map references and geographic information systems out of Washington regarding the difference between Napeague Bay and Gardner's Bay. The body of water that goes between Devon and Promised Land has historically been Gardner's Bay. Napeague Bay is the embayment east of Gough Point. And if we don't have the visual aids, I did bring this. This is the Trustee Records from 1870 to 1897.
I think that's the most popular book we have.
This one? Yeah, this is the one with all the lawsuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's some, a few pages ago, there's the guns, and the trustee sends someone out, and there's Napeague Harbor.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, basically here, the trustees hired a lawyer for trespass on Hicks Island and the Point of Pines in 1879, the meeting at September 1st, and they described the property as all of the tract of land situated in the town of East Hampton, county of Suffolk, state of New York, known as Hicks Island, Point of Pines, Promised Land, Napeague Beach, blah, blah, blah. Bounded on the northwest by Gardner's Bay, northeast by Napeague Harbor, I know what that means, southeast by Pine Lots, Meadow, and the Atlantic Ocean, and southwest by Cranberry Hole and Upland. So what they're saying is that, what you're saying in 1879 is that Hicks Island fronted to the northwest by Gardner's Bay. And if we look at a map, oh, you got one? None of those are mine. It would be the drive, probably this drive here, maybe. Maybe that.
David, honestly, don't feel rushed. We don't have a 3-minute rule. Take your time.
All right.
That goes for everybody.
We can go forward.
We're good like that.
I mean, I spent 10 years on this, so I'll give you 5 minutes.
Sure,
All right.
please do.
So what we're looking at, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you want to do it? All right. This is just a sort of undated 18th century map that shows Fort Pond Bay here, Napeague Bay here, and gets a little vague, but you've got Cedar Point and so on. This is just to say that Napeague Bay is a thing. Some people, including Milton Miller, when I was working with him on this before he died, he said that he never heard of Napeague Bay. We never said Napeague Bay. It just wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. I never heard of it. I grew up on Cranberry Hole Road, and that's Gardner's Bay. All right, how about the next one? We'll go more quickly through some of the other ones. This is in 1894, pretty clearly delineating Gardner's Bay, Napeague Harbor, and then Napeague Bay to the east. Hit the next one, please, John. This is really interesting, and I think this is why Napeague Bay is east of this Gough Point area. If you look at the shoal and you think about the old days with deep draft sailing vessels, you don't want any part of Gardner's Bay unless you're coming around the north, and you read all the piloting. So anyone who's been on this water, there's actually there's a change in the water when you get to about here. It goes from 54 feet to 13 on this map. I think that's feet. And there's sort of an upwelling. You see different fish, different birds. There's really a difference there. So Gough Point. Next one, John. This is funny, because in 1904, the USGS had it right. In 1956, there's a field investigator comes out, has the bright idea to ask the Amagansett postmaster, what's this body of water called? He says, I think it's Napeague Bay. He crosses it out in red ink and writes in Napeague Bay. And that's how today we have, because of Google Maps picking up information from USGS, that Noah making the charts actually had it right the whole time. But that's why now every real estate agent, other than Susan McGraw-Keever, seems to think it's Napeague Bay, is because it's now the digital monsters have taken over. We see the next one? Beautiful, this is I think a soil map, probably prior to 1910. Gardner's Bay way up there, but Napeague Bay again, that little crescent there. Next one, please. Beautiful. Postcard of about, I don't know when that would be, the 20s maybe, Devon Yacht Club. Off for a sale, Gardner's Bay, Amagansett, Long Island, that says. Next one. This is, forget what year, it's another good one, a beautiful E. Belcher Hyde map. I think it's about 1920. Next one, please. This is a good 1935 town district map, very clearly depicting Gardner's Bay wrapping all the way around in front of Hicks Island as the trustees had it in 1879. Next one, please. Too small probably to see, but that is an ad from the East Hampton Star. It says, fresh seafood, market at Promised Land Dock on Gardner's Bay, lobster clams, sea escallops. And I think it's the last one's coming up, or two more. This is the crux of the thing. This is what the Bureau on Geographic Names, this is a Washington, D.C. Board, has. And if you can see down below, the yellow pins are Gardner's Bay, the red pins are Napeague Bay, and down at the bottom, pin 2 and pin 1 are on top of each other. And the trustee's job is to figure out, and which I would ask respectfully that you do, is you pull Napeague Bay pin 1, the red pin, throw it in the garbage, and leave Napeague Bay pin 2. The final slide, please. The question of delineation, not important really if we do the pins, but I think that it might make sense to say nothing west of this line or north of this line, south of this line, something like that should be named. This is where I think it gets fuzzy. If you think back to the well, you can see the shoaling there. One might run the line from Goff Point to say, near Great Pond on Gardner's Island. I've drawn it to the southern tip of whatever we want to call this, Cartwright. That's a little less clear. I think they may be happy with the pins, but I think to be safe and for future discussion, you might want to designate some point. And I don't really have an opinion on the top point. I pretty clearly, the historical record shows that Goff Point is the sort of southern or eastern extent of Gardner's Bay. Where the rest of it goes, I don't really know. And I have tons of paper documentation, but it's all very dry, deeds and all my family surveys. It's very funny, in 1962 when we built the house, it was Gardner's Bay. In 1988 when we did a deck, it's Gardner's Bay. And then in 2008 when Saskis came around to do another survey, all of a sudden it's Napeague Bay. So that's really it. It's really, I think the ball's in your court really about where, and even if you agree, I don't know if you all agree, but
So David, you're saying north of the blue line and east of what we were generally referring to as Cartwright Island or Shoal or whatever, you're saying that's Napeague Bay?
I'm not saying.
I mean, you're hoping that maybe.
Well, what I think the correct way to phrase this, since Gardner's Bay is super amorphous, Napeague Bay I think is very distinct. It's that little crescent. The maps, the old maps show that. I think the key here is to say nothing southwest of this line shall be designated Napeague Bay, and let Gardner's Bay edge be somewhat fuzzy. Because frankly, some people would say it's Block Island Sound where the USGS or this is NOAA has Napeague Bay written here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always been my understanding that
Yeah.
the outer waters are Block
Right,
Island Sound,
right.
Fort Pond Bay, and then
Yeah.
of course further northeast.
For the most part, cartographers put the place name designations where they think it looks best and is more or less right. But when you get down to digital mapping, that doesn't cut it anymore. And I'm sure this is happening all over the country where things get funky.
My only confusion might be Cartwright Island is movable. What if the wording designated it from Goff Point to the southernmost point of Gardner's Island and sort of let that be figured out?
Yeah.
I like that, John. I was thinking the same thing. That's a little
And it-
firmer.
It's a, yeah, it's more,
And it's a little bit more east-west, and, you know, I think Gardner's Bay is historically been delineated inside of Gardner's Island over
Yeah.
towards Shelter Island
Yeah.
and Cedar Point.
In the coastal pilot, which is, I think, a privately published thing, they describe the southern entrance to Gardner's Bay as this buoy here. So,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
a little more north-south orientation would probably
yeah.
support that.
But again, back to the sailing vessel thing, I think it's, and if you've been on the water, there's such a change of feeling when you're out there that it's clear that something's different when you start hitting those shoals to,
Yeah, there could be
the
temperature
eastern part, right?
changes, wind
Yeah.
directional changes.
Yep, everything's different.
Everything is different.
10 years.
Okay, well,
This is November since I
And
first
you're heading
voted.
down to Washington?
I don't know, they don't actually really want me to go, I kind of
Okay.
understand it. But I should say this, the trustees are really, this is it. If we get the letter from you, they will do what you say.
Okay.
We have an old town board letter, more or less agreeing with this line. The maps are pretty conclusive, but the sense is, as a voice of the people, I guess, they want to hear from someone other than me saying, this is the way it should be.
So is it gonna cause an issue if we change that line?
No, we're going to send them a new line, or just send them the pins
Well,
and a
I'm
verbal
just-
description.
Thinking about the other letters that you have. with
Mm.
it.
Yeah, they'll create an updated file, so, you know, this line is up to you, and I certainly can draw it, and, you know, if you want.
Do we even need a line if we just give them a verbal description and let
Nope.
them figure out what? Because if we say southernmost tip of Gardiner's Island, it's up to them to figure out where that is.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, that's good.
David, I have another question. Do you have any maps or information on the west and southwest boundaries of Gardner's Bay?
I haven't looked at them. You know, I see that Northwest Harbor, you know, gets fuzzy as well now. I don't know if I'll take that on, but.
Right.
Yes.
Well, it's something I'm interested in. I don't know if you have any old maps that you might be able to share with us.
Well, I
at
have
some
all this
point.
stuff. I just zoomed in on the parts that are relevant to my point, but I'm happy to go back to them.
At some point, if you had an
Yeah.
extra few moments, it would be interesting to see, because
Yeah.
that is a little fuzzy, and I think we would like to clear that up as well at some
Mhm.
point.
Mhm. I think it makes sense that the northern extent would be fuzzy because no one was really interested in it. There was never a meets and bounds description that had to happen. There's never any property transactions. But when the trustees are cutting a lease or suing someone involving Hicks or Lazy Point or whatever, they are going to describe meets and bounds. It is going to be on maps, it is going to be on surveys, and that's why it's clear on the sort of Long Island mainland, if you will, not so clear what goes on up top. So that's really it. It's your,
So,
I think the pin
you
thing
guys
is
feel?
pretty obvious. The line
Yeah.
is more, I think, and personally, I think John's take is probably right. And if they want us to draw something on a map, I could bring it back to another meeting or whatever, but yeah, it'll be 10 years I've been messing around with this November, so I think at this point.
yeah, I think we should.
So we should make a motion
Someone
to,
want-
yeah,
Motion?
I'll make the motion that we take advantage of David's work and make that change.
Clarifying the boundary.
Yeah, clarifying the boundaries of Gardner's Bay.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You
I
got
can-
it, David.
I can rest easy.
You
Good
can.
work, good work, David.
Sleep
Now get
tonight.
on to the next project, right? All right. Thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you, Francis. Kevin McAllister of Defend H2O. A couple items I'd like to speak to you tonight about. Number one, I want to applaud the board for basically your work in public access. Rod Richardson will be speaking in a little bit. And I know from watching some of the meetings, I'm not here at each and every meeting, of course, but I have seen the discussions. I'm very pleased that you're upholding your position and ensuring that, you know, the public has access to Cartwright, Hicks. I saw the exchange, Ocean Beaches. I know you're also looking at the shoreline hardening in the long-term ramifications to public access as a result. Secondarily, of course, like the swallows of Capistrano, I return again to talk to you about vector control. I just received the proposed 2019 work plan, so that will be going through process. First stop is CEQ on the 17th. Ultimately, they will look at the plan for consistency with SECRA. I believe on the 16th of November, Public Works Committee will take it up, and then full legislature thereafter.
Can you repeat that again? I checked out for a minute.
Okay.
What were you saying?
The date, which is certain, because I saw the agenda, October 17
Right.
at CEQ. So the 2019 work plan will be introduced. And then if these dates hold, now we're into November 16th for likely the Public Works Committee. And if they approve the plan, then it's comes before the full legislature, I believe the 20th of November. So I know I've been before you the last couple of years. I think in 2017, there was a great deal of momentum building. We embarked on some monitoring. You know my feelings about the monitoring. I want to point out, if you've seen my comments, quotes in the paper, ultimately that, you know, and I know you are dealing with East Hampton Town. My view is a little more global with respect to Suffolk County. Ultimately, methoprene was in fact sprayed in Accabonac, as you know, multiple times, Napeague as well. And then I cited the other 15,000 acres, and that was based on the representation in the 2017 work plan. In fact, the 19 plan has now confirmed that the 15,000 acres with the preceding year, what was actually treated with methoprene and BTI was 20,000 acres. So we bumped it. Further, in the 19 work plan, they talk about continued monitoring of Accabonac and ultimately leading into, based on the data, you know, they will be seeking to embark on marsh restoration. And I want to make this adamantly clear. Dredging out these shallow pans that are hotspots, the breeders, that is not restoration. It's one thing going into old duck farms or dredge spoil sites and scraping them down and converting them back into tidal marsh, but to go into ultimately, you know, important microenvironments in these marshes to ultimately eradicate breeding, that's a complete misnomer. And if I ultimately see that word repeated, I'm going to call it out each and every time.
So when you look in the marsh and you see the old ditches, some folks had said that it's a good idea to close them up,
Yeah.
right? And are you opposed to that because you wouldn't want to disturb what's going on in there, or?
I will say some years back, I had urged that we at least plug those ditches to accelerate the sedimentation process. So ultimately, if you don't have the conveyance, which, by the way, they are used for stormwater, that was in documentation by Suffolk County in these work plans, important conveyances for upland rain runoff. So they were using them particularly for discharge points. But ultimately, by plugging these ditches, you are at least stemming that flow, and you would accelerate the sedimentation process. I mean, short of that, in some areas, it probably makes sense to fill them in. But ultimately, going into these shallow pans that are the breeding sites, and by virtue of your monitoring, you're identifying these areas, which are teeming with life other than mosquito larvae. To eliminate that into ultimately small, shallow ponds, I believe is a regression. And while we talk about coastal resiliency, I submit that we need every square meter of marsh out there as a big giant sponge for flood attenuation. So this isn't restoration, and let's just stop calling it that.
Kevin,
So-
do you know that that's what they're proposing, is just dealing with those small areas?
Yes, generally, yeah, it's ultimately through the monitoring when they identify the spots on the marsh, as you're doing. Ultimately, to eliminate the methoprene use, you need to eradicate or eliminate the mosquito breeding. And by virtue, and I've known this because I've seen their plans going back 10 years now. And ultimately, in the 19 work plan, they are saying the data that is being generated will be essentially the basis for the restoration effort going forward.
So Kevin, we have a pothole in the marsh, you know, take Napeag, Cranberry Hole Road. You've got a pothole that's got water sitting in it at, you know, high tide, and the rest of the marsh drains at low tide. And there's this standing area that has water in it. And it sounds like the county's proposing to fill that in and bring it up to the rest of the grade of the marsh and maybe plant the Spartina grasses there to even that out. Is that the correct understanding of what might take place in certain hotspot areas?
I don't think there is any particular plan here.
They have a suite of what
I'm
they
just trying to
call
understand, you know, what we're talking about
best
here.
management practices. And it covers the whole gauntlet, from filling in these depressional areas to creating shallow fish ponds, fish reservoirs, as they describe.
So we're gonna create more standing water areas?
Potentially, but deeper standing water where fish has passage, but you're eliminating centuries-old peat that has deposited. And ultimately, even these microenvironments, these shallow water pans, are important in the marsh ecosystem because they are teeming with life. Dr. Michael Horst, he's a principal researcher on methoprene that looked at the implications to American lobster and blue crab. He commented on the environmental impact statement that the county worked up in 2007 and ultimately called into question the elimination of these, again, the microenvironments within the marsh system.
In your ideal world, what would be done? Nothing? I mean, leaving these breeding areas alone because there's other life in there?
Yes.
And then what about the mosquito issue with everybody that
Well, what's,
complains about
is the
mosquitoes?
tail wagging the dog here? It's, I mean, is this a mosquito?
Well, I'm asking you, what, in your ideal world, would no spray, leave mosquito breeding areas alone, and what then? Just, that's it? Just allow
Yeah, let
this,
nature
allow
take
it
its
to
course. This
happen?
is part of a natural system. I mean, ultimately, you get rack, and for that matter, you know, you could end up eradicating or eliminating a hotspot by virtue of dredging it, right? Cutting out the peat into a deeper water environment, which doesn't allow for the breeding. You know, you get a storm event where massive rack eelgrass gets deposited, you know, ultimately covering the marsh grass. That's the genesis of some of these pans that are created. Ultimately, you're smothering vegetation, the Spartina disappears, and you end up with the depressional area. So, you know, this is, in a way, cyclic. And I
Another question. One thing we found, and I was pretty surprised at this actually, in the ditching, as long as there was a connection between any part of the ditch and the bay and the harbor, we didn't find mosquitoes. And that's likely because the fish could work their way all the way up to the farthest reaches of the ditch. In advocating for closing off the ditches, now salt water doesn't get into them, fish don't come into them. All those ditches, it seems to me, could become breeding hotspots because they're pretty much just standing fresh water.
If they become standing shallow water, ultimately that's a potential, yes. So to be clear, I'm not advocating to go in and close off these ditches necessarily, but I am cautioning against, you know, the term restoration to go in and eliminate these shallow pans in favor of pools and, again, excavation. And that's really what is in the plan with respect to these best management practices.
So it's not filling them in, it's actually excavating them further.
Yes.
Well, it's not always
Well,
necessarily doing that. I
Correct,
mean,
there,
there's some
again, there is
instances
BMPs in their long-term wetlands management plan. I think there were like 21. I mean, it's everything from pulling out an old tire that's clogging a ditch to, you know, on the other side of the spectrum, to actually excavating new ponds, new reservoirs with connector channels. And ultimately, I'm suggesting to you, you know, if we get into the game where we're eliminating these pans, these shallow pans, by virtue of excavations, that's going to be a problem for flood attenuation, and it's a disruption to the marsh ecology.
The natural process.
So that's what I wanted to share with you. And again, I'll point out to you, in the interest of reducing pesticides, in fact, based on 2017, 15,000 acres were treated, which I was quoted as saying this is what they treat with methoprene. In fact, their report in 2019, looking at 2018, said they actually treated 20,000 acres.
And that represents what body of water or what area?
Oh, the entirety of Suffolk County.
Okay, gotcha.
And you'll see essentially in their notices, their spray notices, they'll identify by township, and generally there's 4 or 5, maybe 6 wetland complexes within the townships. There's variation on when they're treating them. Okay, so thank you for your attention, and I want to say that I'm very grateful that you always allow me to speak. You know, there's, and I know you listen, so thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Keep coming, Kevin. Thank you.
Kevin. Chuck Bowman?
Good evening, Chuck Bowman, Land Use Ecological Services.
Good
How are you
evening,
guys
Chuck.
tonight?
Very well, thanks.
Good, good. I found it very interesting what this Kevin was talking about. I mean, we work in marsh restoration all over Long Island, and it is a problem. He's absolutely correct. And in fact, just so the board knows, we finished a study with a bunch of joint partners, including DEC, remapping all the wetlands in Nassau and Suffolk County. And it's amazing, actually, to see some of the wetland losses that have occurred, and some that we really don't know, whether it be sea level rise or other human intervention, but it's something that everybody's got to consider. I'm here for Skylight East. We had a meeting with, and Skylight East, I think Jim will tell you that, you know, we had expanded the buffer areas per his suggestions, added more plants. The village today approved it with the addition of some blueberry and some bayberry in there, so we're going to add that to the plans. But I really don't think it changes anything as far as the trustees goes. It's just going to be substituting some of the plants, adding more with the understanding that the owner can keep them cut at 4 foot above ground, and so that they don't get big, which the village environmental consultant was happy with, and they did approve that today. So I'm hoping that the board will, I don't know if Jim has given you comments or not, or.
Yeah, well, we're on the committee together, and Jim was kind of the lead trustee on this.
No, I know.
Yeah, so I'll talk to him on Monday, if you don't mind reaching out to him as well.
Sure.
And I think, you know, we should be able to, you know, okay this.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great.
That's my sense.
So that would be at the next meeting? So I
If
just have
that's
to report
okay.
back to the owner? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, well, sure.
If you got time,
It
yeah.
is what it is.
What is this in reference to? I'm sorry. I
It's
got
a
lost.
Phragmites.
Phragmites
Removal project.
Where?
Shoreline
What
buffer.
committee is this?
94 Apicus Road.
Georgia
Oh, okay.
George Hill Pond. And we've been going back and forth on this one and another one, because this one was in the village. The other one that is in front of you is My Wife Really Likes It, LLC. Which I saw, every time I say, I just love the name, you know? You know?
Again, that's one that Jim and I were working on, and
Yeah.
I have to be honest, you know, when I go with Jim and I meet with you, I feel like the guy carrying the lunch, you know, and you guys get
Yeah.
into the Latin
Yeah,
words.
I
and-
can get that, too.
Yeah.
Well, Jim,
But,
that's why the last time I sent my son, who's a PhD ecologist, out with Jim, which actually made a lot more sense because then, they were having this whole big discussion that was even above me,
right,
so.
welcome to my world. Yeah, but, no, so, with regards to my, wife likes it, were there any changes?
Yeah, we added, we actually boosted up the woody vegetation to 55%.
Right.
Which is what Jim suggested. And last time we were here, Jim was going to talk to Brian Frank. Brian had said at the last meeting, do the best you can. I mean, he wanted like 80%, which the owner wouldn't go for. But if you remember, this is the one where we're actually abandoning a sanitary system that is very close to the pond edge. And moving it inland. So, I mean, that's a huge mitigation. It's a Phragmites cutting project. It's not an excavation project. So the impacts are pretty minimal. I think the benefits are huge. But, we're asking the owner to spend probably $200,000 and $250,000, and he still wants to see the water, and that's where the town wanted him to plant all these trees and everything else, and, he was just gonna walk away and say, well, why would I do that? I have this beautiful lawn going down to the pond now, so it's a fine balance that we're trying to, but I think Jim was happy with this plan. If not, and he was gonna go talk to Brian Frank and see if he can convince Brian.
All right, so let's reach out to Jim Monday and fine tune this whole thing.
Okay, should I reach out to him to see if
Well,
everything's okay?
we have your number, I'll talk to Jim and we'll call you.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
And as long as I know when it's on for next, because again,
The next meeting's the 22nd.
the 22nd.
Yeah, and it will be on,
Yeah.
both of them.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks,
Okay,
Chuck.
thanks.
Rona?
Thank you.
Rona Klopman from Amagansett. Being a very frequent board watcher, at one of the meetings of the town board about 10 days ago, a young woman came from the Tobacco Action Coalition of Long Island, which is one of 25 community grants funded by the New York State Bureau of Tobacco Control and administered by the American Lung Association. And their work basically focuses on tobacco-free policies to make Long Island a healthier place to live. Also, I am secretary to the Recycling and Litter Committee, so that at many of our meetings, which we just had one yesterday, we are looking to ban several things from the town, one of which is styrofoam, one of which is plastic straws. And this came up in our conversation. And on the back of this flyer, which she handed out, it talks about tobacco-free outdoors, and I'd just like to read it into the record because you have it in front of you. Tobacco litter is poisonous and puts children, pets, and wildlife at risk. Our playgrounds, parks, and beaches should not be used as ashtrays. Cigarette butts are highly toxic, dangerous to children and animals when ingested. Cigarette butts contain over 165 chemicals, are not biodegradable, and are harmful to the environment. Nearly all cigarette butts are made of plastic-like cellulose, acetate fibers, and can take decades to decompose. Cigarette butts are the most littered item in the world, and if you go on our beaches, you can see them, particularly after the summer of a lot of people visiting. They are highly toxic and dangerous to children and animals. Small children are at risk of swallowing, choking, or burning themselves with discarded butts and suffering nicotine poisoning. Within an hour of contact with water, cigarette butts can begin leaching chemicals such as cadmium, lead, and arsenic into the marine environment. Cigarette butts have been found in the stomach of fish, whales, birds, and other marine animals, leading to ingestion of hazardous chemicals and digestive blockages. So why am I here today before the trustees? Well, the East Hampton Star had a very interesting article about the village, without the permission of the trustees, banning smoking on their beach. So I'm here today to ask if you would consider banning smoking from your beaches that you own. This group has come before several towns in Suffolk, and they are banning cigarette smoking. Just for a few, Town of Babylon, Brookhaven, Huntington, Islip, Riverhead, Smithtown, Village of Babylon, Village of East Hampton, Village of North Haven, Village of Northport, Village of Port Jefferson, and Village of Southampton. So you would not be actually the first ones to do it. But I really would like it for your consideration and to put it up for discussion for the trustees. And I thank you for listening and perhaps even doing it.
I have a question.
Yes.
These other places that have banned it, these other towns and villages, do you know if they've banned it wholesale or if they've banned it in areas of concentrated?
I just have a listing from the Tobacco Action Coalition Group, which she handed to the town board, saying these are areas. They are looking to, to working with businesses, colleges, community organizations, to have volunteer ground policy, beach policies in various communities. So I'm not sure which one of these, except for the Village of East Hampton, because I've seen it in the Star, has banned smoking from the beaches, so.
Let me ask you, Rona, you see a lot of cigarette butts on the beach?
Yeah,
Do you pick them up?
yeah,
You do?
yeah.
If there's a lot of things that create litter and trash, debris, whatever you want to call it. on the
Comes in from the ocean.
On our roadsides and beaches. I guess one way to stop it would be to ban everything, and then there would be nothing to litter with. Or we
I don't want to go that extreme.
Or we can educate the public on how to, get ready for this, not litter.
We're working on it.
I think, yeah, I've been working on it too.
I know you have.
I
long
think, I get it. I like the issues with the balloons and the straws and banning everything, but again, it just seems it's getting to a point where we're trying to eliminate or solve the trash issue or eliminate the debris by taking everything away. That's not educating people to not litter. It's taking away stuff to litter with, and you're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. Take away the straws and the balloons, you're still going to have the cups and the plastic bags. Take away the plastic bags and the cups, you're still going to have balloon strings and cigarette butts. Keep eliminating things. There's always going to be something.
Well, you have to start somewhere.
I understand. It's a great point, Ron. I'm not arguing the point. I just always have thought it a better attack on litter and debris would be to educate folks on not littering.
But secondhand smoke is a public health concern.
I agree with both of you, and I would like to say that Judith Weiss from the Springs, who's not here now, has written a wonderful article which indicates that cigarette butts are the worse than straws, plastic straws. So while we are banning plastic straws and styrofoam, cigarette butts plastic itself does not disintegrate. It never disintegrates. So you're completely correct. by saying people need to learn to not throw their garbage on the beaches, number one. But I agree with Rona, on the other hand, where we don't allow smoking in restaurants. And if you're sitting on the beach and someone's smoke wafts by you, or your child's, they're inhaling that cigarette smoke.
Restaurants are privately owned. The beaches are for the public.
Well, this article by Judy Weiss is, and she's a member of Acabonic Protection Committee, and I'm also the liaison to that and a member myself. It's called Microplastics, a Problem of Minuscule and Epic Proportions, and I put it on Facebook on my trustee page. But it is a real concern, so I see, your side, absolutely, because we go around picking up the garbage.
I agree with Rona, it's just, I think it's a little too much. I mean, I don't want to have to go back to this example, but, I'm trying to fight to get garbage cans off the beach, okay? That seems to me the whole kit and caboodle here. And I'm butting heads trying to get that done. But meanwhile, we're trying to needle away at the straws, the bags, the cups, the balloons, the cigarettes. How about we get the garbage cans off the beaches? Then maybe all that other stuff will slow. It's a start. It's a start. Get the garbage cans off the beaches. That's a start to getting all the other stuff off the beaches.
Well, but I think that, they're looking at it, and I am too, from the point of view, if you go down to the beach and you want to sit on a beautiful day, and you have somebody sitting next to you smoking a cigar or smoking a cigarette, I mean, you just say, I want to breathe the fresh air, and you can't stop them.
I understand,
Rona, why don't you just say it's me? Because I like a good cigar. But saying that, I'm also very considerate of people, and I don't smoke.
But a lot of people aren't.
No, I understand that. No.
Well, if the village has banned smoking on the beach, the trustees should consider this, and we can discuss it.
Well, first of all, the village has banned smoking on our beach. So there's a problem right there, okay?
Well, I think that was a misunderstanding.
Well, we'll get to that.
They brought up the vaping issue with us. Now,
Vaping,
they've
yes.
taken other steps beyond that
Well,
without
yeah.
communicating? Is that a
It's
correct
no
understanding?
smoking.
Watch the village
And
board
vaping.
meeting. It's kind of, we got a request from the village about vaping in the pavilion.
Right, I remember that discussion.
They
Did not
basically
mention the
said,
beach at all.
This is not our territory.
Right.
And we have no objection to this, but if you are talking about the beach,
We should talk about it.
we should talk about it.
Right.
They passed the law, and they discussed this, and took our letter as opposition to the ban on the beach. And then they passed the law in a section of the code that the village administrator said didn't need trustee permission. One of the trustees asked if they could in fact pass this law.
One of the village trustees.
One of the village trustees asked if they could in fact consider this law if the trustees, the town trustees,
Right,
hadn't approved it.
right.
And the village administrator said, no, we put this in a section of the law that doesn't require trustee permission, which I don't really understand.
Yeah, we need to talk
I've
about
got a
this.
lot of
Our
information on
beach
that.
anyway.
But please, finish, because
Well-
they said we don't need their permission, at which point the mayor said, let's agree to disagree, period. That was his exact words. So, but I have more information on that on beaches. Meanwhile, Ron, I appreciate it. Look, you've always helped me with the trash, and on the litter committee, I know you're fighting for all these good things. I'm with you, but and I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think that's a big
Infringement.
step. I hate smoking. I can't believe I smoked for all the years I did. It's probably
I
gonna
did too.
I've quit
I
now
did
for
too.
6 years, and it's probably going to kill me. I have emphysema, and I hate everything about it. But I just think you're going to catch a lot of opposition.
Well, they had one, according to the article, I wasn't there when they banned the smoking, there was only one sole dissenting vote on the village board, and that was Richard Lawler.
Right, but again, the village is separate issue because they're making laws on property that's not theirs. So that's different. Now, if the trustees all want to ban cigarettes on our beaches, then I would probably, after a good discussion about it, would agree with the majority if they felt that way. Personally, as a step towards one less trash item on the beach, like you said. But again,
But this would be a
I
trash
think
item, this would be a trash item that's really a health issue.
health issue
As
as
well.
well, and
Right.
look, saving our wildlife, I know, one cigarette butt, what leaches out of the filter could kill one animal very quickly. I'm with you on all this.
So we have three members who aren't here tonight, Rose, so I think
Right.
in fairness,
But
to get everyone up to speed.
I realize that, so I think
why don't we
if
get a
we
little
bring
time
it
to
up
talk about
again.
This is the debate that we should have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The last thing I'll mention as a consideration, maybe we could have just a small section in the parking lot. off to-
A smoking corral?
No, where you can go and
Tent
house
up,
smoke.
and we can use one of our
Possible.
tents, you know?
We don't know any.
No. I know you guys always think I'm funny, and but
Well,
I'm
you
not trying.
are.
Thank you, but I'm not trying to be funny. Maybe because some
Smoking
people are going to
section.
feel like their rights are being infringed upon, and so I'm thinking, okay, so if we had a spot where they could go, have a quick butt, and then return back to their family on the beach. Just a thought.
But you have other people's rights as well, the people who really want to stay healthy and not breathe that
Oh,
in.
no, that's why I say, if we found a section where they could do that, just a thought. Okay.
All right, well, thank you. And I wanted to ask Rick, what happened with the roads? Anything? For the trustee road? Full highway?
We haven't completed all the research yet.
Oh, okay.
so There'll be some discussion about it a little later, but it's
Okay.
still ongoing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rona.
Thank you. Elizabeth Holliday?
Hi, Holly.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Halliday. I'm against it. I'm just here briefly to voice my support for the trustees and other officials at the town of East Hampton and other government entities for their continued research and support of the Deepwater Wind project. I don't have much materials, but today I did bring a cartoon which kind of exemplifies some of the problems that we have. It says, renewable energy now and clean power. And in the fine print, it says, I like the idea of renewable energy now in theory. And we demand clean power, just not where we can see it. Sometimes when I read what's happening with the disputes in Wainscott and other places, we are going to be inconvenienced during the transition to clean power. Things that we expect and take as our God-given right and historical right are going to be disrupted. But if anybody in Mexico City or Panama City, Florida, sat by as they watched their houses being blown away shingle by shingle, we're going to have to do something, and that having a transmission line come through, the momentary disruption, loss of fish, we understand that, but it pales in comparison to the larger problem, and I'd just like to support the efforts of all of you trying to find the best solution, trying to find the most inclusive solution, and to continue to stay the course with compassion and courage. Thank you.
Thank you. Billy Mack?
Good evening, everybody. Billy Mack, First Coastal. I guess the first topic would be the Water's Edge properties, 115 and 123. Water's Edge bulkhead reconstruction applications that I have. And it was nice to meet Susan there the other day. I think we walked pretty much the entire site and noticed that the bulkhead is certainly in need of repair. And that section does get a lot of storm energy.
Where is it again?
Water's Edge, Simpkins, are the two, Savage
Right.
and Simpkins.
Water's Edge.
Come again?
And what's there now, a failing?
Bulkhead that's still functional, but old.
Sure.
Yeah. So we're looking to reconstruct them.
They're
Yeah,
adjacent?
circle around.
They're adjacent, yeah, and they're, on either side of them is also existing bulkheads.
Are these older creosote materials?
Yeah,
and things like
exactly,
that?
exactly.
And this is in kind, in place?
In kind, in place. Yeah.
Raising the
We'd,
height?
we'd ask for the option to go up to, in elevation up to 18 inches, as the DEC is
Above the current?
above the current elevation, correct, which is the standard now for most bulkheads to be increased by that much.
Susan and I went and we met with Billy
Good.
last week, and we'd walked the whole property. They're contiguous properties, and you can see by the photographs that I took that they definitely are in disrepair. I think you said that they were built originally, the groins, back in the 40s?
I think that just, yes, I was talking to
So-
some of the town officials, and they
They
said-
are, and the entire, the pictures are right there.
Yeah, there's old
John has-
creosote,
Billy, that
timbers.
increase of 18 inches, is that the recommendation of DEC, or do they go higher than that?
You can ask for higher. They give an automatic 18 inches for bulkhead structures.
Have you seen higher?
Uh,
Just curious, with the
No, I-
anticipation of sea.
There was one section in Riverhead that was 2.5 feet, but that was a specific
Okay.
request, so I think it was a
Wave
marina.
action or something?
Yeah.
I'm not sure which owner's home was severely scoured out by, I think you said Sandy?
Yeah, there was
The
an
entire
overtopping.
bulkhead was, all the natural vegetation was taken away and the core logs were put in.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone on Water's Edge is bulkheaded, which
Right.
I did ask Billy how far down the bulkheading goes, and everyone on that side is bulkheaded.
Yeah. A lot of the bulkheads have been reconstructed already. There's probably half of them that have not. So these are two of them that we're talking about.
This is vinyl?
Currently,
That's vinyl sheeting. It was done
It's old,
landward
so it
of
would
the
come up.
creosote sheathing as a patch.
yeah.
So it's relying on the structural timbers that are creosote and failing.
I have a survey if you'd like to look at this.
No, he's got a good picture here.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
take everything out and put in just new, yes.
Vinyl.
Vinyl with green hard timbers.
Yeah, we do it all the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And the grate that's on top, the neighbor at the end, I think you said 2 years ago, the contiguous, I'm not sure which property, either Simpkins or Savage, but they had redone their bulkheading a few years ago with a grate on top. which
Yes,
would-
with an open grate on
Would happen
top.
here as well.
Right, right. And we'd revegetate the lost vegetation with beach grass.
Beach grass. Does anyone want to see the survey or
That
have
being
everything?
behind the bulkhead or?
Directly
or-
behind, yeah, there's about 15 feet landward of the bulkhead that we need to disrupt, and then we replant it after the
So it'd be
reconstruction.
beach-compatible sand and
Exactly.
beach grass?
Yep.
What are the chances, I'm sorry, were you done?
I just had one question,
Yeah,
if I
go
may.
ahead.
What is the future vision for the groins that are seaward of the bulkhead?
They're leaving them there.
Good question. I don't think they're owned by these property owners, so it's unaddressed by us.
Right now, okay.
Yeah.
Pictures of both.
Do you have any historical background on that?
Right now, they're certainly, perfect world, they wouldn't be there, but they're capturing some of the littoral sand and creating kind of these perched beaches that are functional for people.
Yeah,
So-
there is some sand in front of
Yeah.
the bulkhead, which is
Right.
not always a given.
Right, so I think that was the intent of why they were built so many years ago.
The problem is crossing
Just out of
past them
curiosity,
when
say you
sand is lower.
disrupt behind, you pull the soil away,
I've
then
walked along
remove the
this,
bulkhead so
climb
that
over
the
them.
Crappy wall.
doesn't collapse into the water.
Yeah, exactly.
The
And we
town
pile
and
the
trustees
soil
right
up
now are
behind
looking
whatever we
into these
excavate, so it
things
doesn't
all
run into the
along
water
that
crest.
beach down,
fresh pond, too.
mainly at.
And we work with the
Albert's
tides
Landing.
typically.
Yeah.
Talked about that once
Billy,
before.
excuse
Fresh
me,
pond is
how
another.
old are the current
Seems like-
bulkheads?
I think it was
About?
the county may have built them.
So there was some repairs that were done, and I think those repairs were probably about 20 years ago. But the original bulkhead was probably, like I said, in the 40s or 50s.
I think this pretty much shows you the condition of the bulkheads.
Yeah. And they're still
Going out.
functional, they're just not doing so great.
Francis, do you have a status of your?
No, I was gonna ask, I was gonna see. what the odds were of
DEC,
pulling
I
those
believe,
things.
is, they just wanted some additional information, but they showed no objection to it, so we're expecting to get that. And a natural resource is reviewing, Brian Franks has been communicating with our office. I think he just needs some additional information as well. But he didn't seem like he was objective with anything with respect to the bulkheads.
So do we want to make a motion
Yes.
to propose that when you have all the documents from, you're ready, then bring them back in, and then we can take a vote on it, or do we want to take a vote now?
Well, the application's in,
Yeah.
so
application's in.
I would say we could, go ahead.
Where are you with, you have DEC and?
DEC submitted, and so is the town. We expect to get the DEC in the next several weeks. We'd like to try to do this project this winter, obviously.
I mean, typically, don't we get DEC in place first before we vote? I mean,
It's up to you guys.
That's what I'm saying, do we
obviously.
want to wait until?
Not necessarily. I mean,
Yeah.
this is pretty
No,
straightforward.
but what's gonna happen is, if we were to issue the permit now, it's just sitting there doing nothing until you get those other permits, so it's.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm happy
Where we could
to
issue
renew them if we had to,
additional
but hopefully that won't happen.
Sorry?
Or we could issue a permit conditional.
Contingent upon
Right.
the
DEC.
DEC and the
That's fine.
Did
ZBA.
Susan
Yeah.
have any opinion on the 18-inch increase in height?
Susan and I did not discuss it afterward. I think that she was fine, but I would refer to her directly to ask her. But that was a question that Susan and I both asked of Billy, whether or not the homeowners were intending to use the 18 inches, and I believe you had told us.
Is that
Yeah.
a requirement of the DEC?
It's not a requirement, no, but those bulkheads have been overtopped, and that's part of the reason to get that increase.
We did just recently approve the art barge with an 18.
Exactly.
And the
Right.
Mendelsons also, down at 3 Mile Harbor.
Yep.
You know, they increased.
Right.
So everybody's on board with, sea level rise.
Yeah.
And I think the 18 inches prudent.
And especially with a bulkhead that's been around for,
Sure.
decades.
And at some point, again, I don't know which exact property it was, but the bulkhead looked as though it had actually gone down. It was not level any longer. So I think the 18 inches would be perfectly
fair.
acceptable, and since the DEC is willing to grant that anyway.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is obviously get these repaired before they do fail and allow a lot of the vegetation and soil into the bay. So we'd prefer to get them.
Susan, this is your committee, so, I'll follow your lead. If you want to, wait till Billy gets his DEC permit, I'm okay if you want to give him the permit now, pending the approval of the DEC and the town, that's fine too.
Well,
I'm okay with that approach. Brian.
Conditional approval.
Conditional approval.
I would make
All right.
a motion to approve it contingent upon you're getting the DEC approval, and we go from there, and then you're all set to go.
I'll second that.
And ZBA.
Is this for
And the
both
ZBA.
Is this for both properties?
Both properties,
Correct.
they are contiguous.
Okay.
You second it?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. And there's also an issue on the Mulford Lane, but I don't think we're really prepared. 153 Mulford Lane Associates. That's a rock revetment at the end.
I think Jim mentioned maybe revisiting that at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
exactly.
You okay
Jim and
with
I
that, Bill?
met and missed you last time,
Sure.
sorry. But happy to discuss that at a later meeting.
And I've been down there a million times, so, and Jim brought me up to speed.
Susan wanted to weigh in on this
Absolutely.
further as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to put
Table.
that on hold for a
Yeah.
while.
Okay.
Great. Thank you,
Thanks-
guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Appreciate it.
All the merrier, no problem.
Rod Richardson?
Thank you very much. I'm Rod Richardson, as you know. Nice to see you guys.
Hey, Rod.
Hey, Rod.
Thank you very much for holding these meetings and having so much public input, and thank you guys for being such staunch defenders of the public rights and the public trust, of which you are, the defenders. So thank you very much. I wanted to talk to you principally about two things tonight, but I thought I might comment on a couple of things that came up otherwise. I wanted to compliment David on his presentation on Napeague Bay. I believe he's 100% accurate about that. I've been sailing out in those waters all my life with many, many of the older generation of sailors, and all of them, to a man, referred to that water in the south part of Gardiner's Bay as Gardiner's Bay, not Napeague Bay, ever. So, that really is a mistake that got into the charts that shouldn't have been there. And, anything you could do to correct that would be a service. But, well, we've mentioned, Hicks Island and Cartwright Island, and I actually wanted to speak about both of those tonight. But let me just start with Cartwright, and more that I had, it's been a while since I've addressed you about that, and I'm wondering if you guys have considered that issue of the public access to Cartwright and the issues that are raised and what you guys are going to do about that.
I think,
We have
Steve Bonner's on it.
Bonner's researching it.
Yeah, we have
We retained a
Historian.
historical
Record,
Historic study.
title,
researcher.
title.
and he's going to find the answer.
Great. Would it be possible for me to talk to him? I'd love to, hear his thoughts and.
Well, he's in progress on the report. He will be presenting to the board in, probably about 30 days now.
Right.
So-
You can go down and talk to him. That particular part of the library has special hours, just check, and I'm sure he'll chat with you.
Is he a librarian there?
Yeah, he's the historic librarian.
All right. Let me.
Is he in the archives room? Yeah, okay.
I may have dug up some things that he may not know about.
Cool.
He's actually on David's letter,
Yeah.
Steve Borner, Boehner.
Oh, right. Borner. I thought you said, yeah, no, I talked to him before.
Yep.
Well, in any event, I will certainly, check in with him. So he's looking in just what is the actual question that you focused him on?
Well, whether or not we
Ownership?
have ownership of,
Well, not us, no. It's,
If Cartwright is
if
single and
it's
separate
owned
from
by
the garden.
Gardner or not.
or the state? Is that the question?
That would be the
Right.
question.
I inquired with the state,
Because we own the foreshore.
and the gentleman told me from the state.
Not out there.
Not out there?
No, our patent goes to the northern shore.
So the fellow I spoke to from the
Bordered by
state,
Gardner's Bay.
he said that his records show closest to East Hampton, with regards to Cartwright Island, was East Hampton, and then it looked like the middle was the state, and there was a section closest to Gardiner's Island that he thought, it appeared that the Golay family gardeners own that. But he said to me, but I highly recommend that you go to the deeds and they'll tell you more clearly.
Right.
But it was interesting that, he put me on hold and came back and said, it looks like 3 people or bodies own it.
Right, no, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
And the other issue, Rod, is there ownership into the water? Or
Right.
is ownership to a rack line or, mean high tide line?
Mhm.
So there may be other issues that are brought to light by Mr. Borner's research.
Sure.
So he projected a
But
2-month.
he's a historian, not a lawyer, right?
Correct, but he does title work.
Right.
And title research, and he projected a 2-month lead time. So it seems like he's planning to do a pretty deep dive on this.
Oh, good. Well, that's great.
So about 30 days out from
Right.
him.
And his area of
Compiling his
expertise is historical titles.
I think, we actually, that's what the town was basing their arrest of me on, was that tax map, which says that the Gardners own Cartwright. But if you look at the, way they've defined their ownership in the agreements between the McGinty administration and the Golays regarding their conservation easement and the management agreements, these 2 different agreements which are on Cartwright Island publicaccess.com, it's really clear that the full estate is defined by one tax map number for Gardner's Island. And Cartwright is a separate tax map, and it's not included in the legal definition of their island, right, of what they own, of the full estate. So then when you go to the actual tax map number, and then you look up the deeds in the county, which we did, what you find there is there's no mention of Cartwright Island. There are deeds for Gardner's Island in the Cartwright file. That's what they got. So we had a date of October 4th to provide for the, court date for the district attorney to provide discovery in my case with them. They are obligated by the judge to prove every single particular of their case. And they are obligated to share that with the defense. They failed to provide discovery. And I think they failed to provide discovery because they are suddenly realizing that there is nothing there. They don't have anything. So there's literally just this big myth of the ox and nothing else. But I think as you deliberate on this, I think one important point that you guys should keep in mind, and this is where my thinking goes, is that whether this is publicly owned or privately owned, it doesn't really matter. Because either way, there's definitely a public access right, right? We know that there's a public access right from the public trust doctrine. And even if they own into the water, there's been centuries of use by people in the town of East Hampton. And that use, continuous use, every single year by hundreds of people, would have established, a public right. So that there's definitely a public access right by public trust doctrine, by continuous use, by whatever. And even if they own, into the water, by their Donegan patent, they too are in the shoes of trustees of the public trust. That royal patent is not the same as a grant of private property rights to a homeowner. That was a feudal manor which was meant to be part of a public community. So they too have a public right, a public duty, if they owned it, which I don't think they do. Because, as I mentioned to you before, your patent gives you the beaches. Their patent does not even mention the beaches. So I think there's a big difference that'll come to light there. But anyway, those are but the fundamental point is that whether or not it's public or private, there's a public access right that you guys should be standing up for. If there's any vague question, where this body has to fall down on is this is a public right, because that's what you're all about, defending that public access right, I think, for the people of East Hampton. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is Hicks Island. As you recall, I spoke to you about that in April. And, that we did the trash cleanup and found tons and tons of trash on Hicks Island, probably because nobody had been allowed to go over there for years. And I pointed out that those signs that were up there with no authority on them, and, I appreciate you guys taking care of it. Whatever happened, the signs came down. It seemed like public access was being respected. For most of the summer, for all the summer, there was one sign that prohibited truck access, and there was a break in the fence to allow, pedestrian access. But only truck access was prohibited this summer, which makes sense because there's marshland there. There's places that you could drive around Hicks Island where you could definitely get stuck. There's places just not suitable for driving. So that made sense. I had no objection. They were providing public access. But now there are signs that since the summer, whoever it is that put these signs up waited until after the summer was over, and now there are 2 more signs up on the east end of Hicks Island. Sorry. Let me get that out of the way so you can see what I'm talking about.
Can you read those signs?
Sure. It says, these are the same signs, by the way, same signs that were up before, with no attribution on the bottom, okay? Nobody so it could have been the DEC that put them up, it could have been some vigilante, we don't know. That's improper. They should have something. First one says, Hicks Island, closed to public, keep out, bird nesting area. The second says, bird sanctuary, area closed to public, no dogs, camping, picnicking, boat landing, okay? As everybody can see these signs. As you can, maybe there's a...
Rod, my understanding is those signs were put up before Golf Point, before it goes out to the island. There's a roadway that goes off into the,
Yes,
and those signs are at that road.
that's right. There are two roads that go towards Golf
Right.
Point. They're at
So
the-
they're not actually
They're at
on-
the western road.
But they're not actually on Hicks Island.
Those signs are not on Hicks Island,
Right.
and indeed, they seem to extend the boundary of Hicks Island very much further to the east.
By the
So
walking
the-
dunes.
So in other words, there was areas that were publicly accessible on the Hither Hill State Park that are now being made not publicly accessible because of the placement of those signs.
Looks like
There
there's a
are
third
three of
sign
them.
there, Rod.
Yeah,
Is there a
three of
third?
The third sign is the no trucks, which I don't have any issue with because it just simply would be wrong to have trucks driving over marshlands and it would be dangerous. So that truck sign, that's reasonable. But
I believe that's
these
supposed to be
these other two
accessible.
signs that, say, public keep out, think how unreasonable that is. I mean, there are no birds nesting there now. There have been no birds nesting there or fledging since August 15th, and there won't be anything there until May.
Ron,
Okay?
as a New York State 4x4 permit holder, I believe their documentation states that that's 4x4 accessible property, at least up to the cut of Hicks
Right.
Island, the old east cut.
Well, they've moved that line, they keep moving it further east, so it's really in the wrong
Is
place.
the no truck sign published by New York State? Is that?
No, there's no.
Because
That's wrong.
No
too.
one's taking credit for it.
All other beach areas that are managed, for fishing access, camping access in the Montauk area and the Heather Hills area,
I'll just put this straight.
clearly are delineated by New York State Department of Parks.
Right.
Their signage is
Uh,
clear.
Well, look, somebody needs
So-
to go have a conversation with Mr. Tom Dess about this, because he's theoretically in charge of this land.
It would-
So if
it's on
he's
New York
putting
State
up those
property.
signs, he should be putting them up, but he shouldn't be putting up those up. The reason why he shouldn't be putting those up is that, number one, the trustees, I believe, own the foreshore of Hicks Island inside of Nepean Bay, right? So you guys own that foreshore there. So for him to say no boat landing, he's making rules that govern your land, which he has no right to do. And closed to public, keep out. This is basically, if this were Mr. Dess doing it, it would be improper because New York State Coastal Policy 20 says that New York State is going to, make sure that the public has access to public land. So this would be, the way you preserve the way you preserve a nature sanctuary or an area where you have birds is you put up exclosure fencing and you put up the signs that say, don't go into the areas where there are birds, which is the upland. Birds do not nest on the foreshore. They simply don't because they would drown. That is an intertidal area. You can't nest in an intertidal area. So they don't do that. But to prohibit all public access like that is simply unreasonable. It needs to be reasonably done. If they want to create a bird sanctuary in Hicks Island, it was a bird sanctuary. The reason it's not, as you all know, is that the eastern cut filled in. I don't know what this issue is with that, but if I were you, I would say, look, that was your land that just got filled in, that underwater land in that cut belonged to you, right? So the public access in and out of Nepean Bay, which you owned, has filled in. I think you have a right to dredge it. There was a case in the 1930s or 40s where the private owner wanted to maintain a connection had formed between the western part of Hicks Island and Lazy Point. And there was a lawsuit about that, and that owner was claiming that he owned to the low tide line, and therefore all the land that it accreted was his, and but the trustees won. So, it seems to me, pointing to that case, you guys would win very easily if you said, hey, that was our cut there that closed in, and we want it opened up.
Well, the trustees did open that cut after it filled in more than once.
Yeah.
I don't think
That is
anybody's
delineating
necessarily
our property.
disputing our ability to do that.
Okay, well, but if you did that and trapped the foxes and raccoons that are in there and relocated them, that would reestablish the bird sanctuary. That would be the thing that you need to do.
Well, the
Keeping the
difficulty-
public out is not
The
what you need to
difficulty
do.
with that is that shoreline is so active now and has been, and that cuts that were dug filled in very quickly.
We also
It
don't
became
have the
a
funds.
cost-benefit issue.
We can't even consider it because of the cost.
Right.
It's a multi-million dollar
It's a-
project. We've looked into it before.
Well,
And-
you know,
and
I'll bet
Tragic
you
problem.
that the homeowners who would like sand dumped in front of their properties would finance it for you if you asked them.
There's not $5 million worth of sand there.
Oh, well, but.
Another point I'd like to make about what's gone on here historically, or at least in recent history, is around the time that piping plover protection became the thing, there was a fence put up in the area where those roads split at Goff Point during the piping plover season to keep trucks off of Goff Point. Traditionally, trucks did drive right out to the inlet
Right.
and fish there.
Mhm.
And there was fencing put up to prevent driving because there were piping plovers on that spit.
Right.
And then it was generally taken down in the fall when the birds fledged. So
Right.
there is some historical, precedence for that area being an area where, access was restricted due to bird breeding.
But there's no argument, John, I have no argument with a reasonable seasonal restriction on access. But that does not include restriction on the public foreshore, which has no conservation value, for the birds. You shouldn't be restricting boat landing on the foreshore. That's not going to help the birds. You shouldn't be, restricting the public from going there at all times during the year. That's unreasonable. So, in any event, look, guys have got an interest in that foreshore, in that land, and in the East Hampton citizens' rights to public access everywhere. So, I would ask, will you please take this up with Tom Dess, do whatever you need to do to check into this, and see that those signs come down and never go up again, so that public access is preserved. Okay, appropriate signage, fine. Protect the birds, fine. But don't do that at the expense of the public. I mean, I want to thank Kevin McAllister. We're going to have his remarks to the town board up on the Cartwright Island public access site, but he made a really good point, that there is a linkage between public access rights and conservation that is necessary. And his points about that are, I'm going to bungle what he said because it was a sophisticated point, but basically, every conservation law in this country, really is rooted in the public trust doctrine. It's rooted in the idea that, this stuff belongs to the public, that the public has a right to enjoy it, and we preserve it because it's a benefit to the public in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to limit public access and limit, when you say to the school children, oh, you can't go there because you'll get arrested if you do, that's wrong. I mean, our students, our kids should be able to explore nature freely. They should be able to go out there and, walk, as long as they're not in the bird areas, they should be able to, play pirates and whatever they want, because that's what's going to create the next generation of conservation lovers who vote for conservation protections. So, in any event, I've made my enough points, but by the way, I want to applaud you, Brian, and you, Del. I think you're right on about the cigarette issue in this regard too, because what you guys are all about is protecting public rights, not limiting them. So I think that you want to find a way to solve these problems where you expand freedoms rather than contracting them if you can, because you're rooted in protecting freedom, not in denying it. Okay?
One thing I'd like to.
Sure.
I guess make a point or state my concern and maybe ask what you think about it is, and this might apply, well, how do you square, this is what goes around in my mind, how do you square, okay, you got a public right to access.
Yes.
But you also have a public interest in maintaining healthy wildlife populations. Now, you have colonial nesting birds that do like to be relatively isolated when they breed.
Yeah.
And I feel as though, especially in a place like Cartwright, if you allow people to access the foreshore, you're going to threaten the bird's breeding behavior to the point that they won't breed there. It's not just a matter of whether they're on the nest or not on the nest that the birds are going to breed or not breed. How do you square that, you know, as a public interest? You know, you sort of have to take those two things into account, in my mind.
Well, I think that, if I may, you know, I'll show you some images of Cartwright to explain what you do. But basically, you do what you do on the mainland. The same procedures on the mainland apply. When you have an area where the birds are nesting, you put up the exclosure fencing.
Well, you're talking about piping plovers.
What?
You're talking basically about piping plovers. I'm talking about, say, common terns. I mean, common terns, not that long ago, bred on Hicks Island. They haven't bred on Hicks Island for about 40 years, I'd say.
Well,
I have a feeling it's because the more people were around, accessed Hicks Island, maybe also wildlife got onto Hicks Island.
I may be wrong about this, but I believe there were terns on Hicks Island before the cut filled in. I believe that there were terns coming back, that there are reports that say they were actually coming back.
There were nests there about 10 to 15 years ago.
But let me just say one thing about Cartwright Island. People have visited Cartwright Island without any harassment throughout the 20th century. I mean, I did, my family did, I know hundreds of people, and yet there were plenty of birds out there the whole time. You know, there's no evidence whatsoever that that public access that was allowed then had any harm. Not one iota of evidence that there was harm. So my suggestion is that, you know, I mean, so the idea that, oh, this is going to, you know, destroy the bird is a myth where there's no basis for it.
Rod, do you see any difference in East Hampton between those days and today?
Do I see any difference?
Any difference whatsoever?
Sure, I do, but not. You know, and one of the differences that I see is like this insane militarization that's gone on in Gardiner's Bay. Pardon my colorful word for it, but you know, when you have patrol boats going up and threatening families with children and telling them that they're going to get arrested.
Well, I'm just thinking of Hicks Island. We're talking about Hicks Island.
Right.
And it seems to me that if you were to just allow free access to that island today, it would be overrun. It would totally be overrun.
I doubt it.
I don't doubt it the least.
I think if you say, look, if you say to people, you know, look, you know, you have you have exclosure fencing where there are birds, right? And you allow people to go on the foreshore, they can walk on the foreshore around the island, they get an experience of nature, the birds are protected, I don't think it's going to do any problem.
Do you recall why the East Channel was allowed to close? You know why.
Why it was allowed to close?
Right.
Because the,
I don't think it's allowed.
well, I think I know. Because you can't, the harbor wouldn't support two cuts?
No, it was because the local guys were annoyed that there were boats coming from Connecticut and other places and coming in there and anchoring.
Well, there was
and that was how long ago?
There was dredging proposed in
And today,
88.
with the population, the number of people, I just don't see it remaining the way you think it's going to be. I'm sorry.
Well, you know,
I agree with you 100%, and that we need to have a discussion with Tom Dest about the foreshore and that. If the state wants to deny access to their land, we may have an opinion, but I don't think that we can fight that battle.
Yeah, but I don't think they can deny access to the foreshore.
No, I agree.
You know, so they can't,
agree.
they can't have a sign that says public keep out, or.
But you keep
They
talking
can say, they can say, you know, public keep out above the high water mark.
Right.
They could say, you know,
Right.
they can say no camping, I suppose, but they can't say public keep out
And on
entirely.
the other side, they can keep us out.
And they, but you know, so all I'm saying is these signs go too far. But John, to answer your question about Cartwright, because I think you were asking about Cartwright. The birds nest in 2 locations on Cartwright right now. There's at the extreme north end and at the extreme south end, there's high ground. And that's covered by a rack line that's in an oval shape going around the high ground. That's where it is. It's on the extreme north end and south end. But most of the island is this really low, thin strip that goes in between, you know, the north end and the south end. I mean, the vast majority is there's no rack line that's overwashed. Birds don't nest there. They nest at the north end or the south end. They all huddle together in groups. There's no nest there. So if you were to, you know, I mean, by the way, that Cartwright Island is so low that in the middle there, it's actually breaking apart. It's in the process of breaking into 2 islands right now.
It shifts around a lot.
So there's, you know, there, you can see that, you know, there's a new.
It's like a moving sandbar.
Well, actually, you know, I did a little study, personal study of the satellite imagery for going back as far as I could find it. And what seems to happen on a regular basis with Cartwright, it's not exactly a regular cycle, but what happens is that the island elongates to the south, and then it thins in the middle, breaks in the middle, the southern part drifts over to the west and sinks. And then the island grows out again, and the process repeats. And there's this kind of constant cycle with Cartwright.
Which is the littoral drift, right?
Right,
Going to
the island elongates, breaks in the middle, it drifts to the west, and the northern part, the cut opens up, so space opens up between the 2 sandbars, and the one to the west and south sinks, and over again. But it's, but to go back to your point, John, I think with Cartwright, what you would do, if the town were doing this properly, they'd put up the exclosure fencing around the north end and the south end, and they'd put it out maybe, you know, I don't know what you know, 100 yards out from the bird nesting area. You know, so, you know, you might end up closing off the north and the south tips, but you would be able to keep the middle open because birds don't nest there. So you'd, you know, at least be able to allow people some public access. And, you know, to go out there and from a distance.
That might be a fair compromise.
Yeah, you know.
Because I have suspected all along that, you know, the gardeners / Goulet, they just don't want people on their property. I understand that. And if we're saying there'd be a section closest to Gardeners Island on Cartwright that, I don't like fences, but if something, or even a sign, then they should be happy with that.
Yeah,
I would think.
yeah, you know, no, I don't go into the bird nesting areas, and no one should go there.
Right.
But, you know, there's a difference between reasonable conservation measures and blanket prohibitions against people going there. It's ridiculous. So, anyway, enough. I've said enough. So, anyway, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Rod.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next time I'll tell you about who I've promised to tell you who the Cartwrights are. I have not yet done so, but I will. I'll come back sometime and tell you about who the guys are that are named, the Cartwright Islands.
Isn't that Little Joe, Hoss, and Ben?
No.
Oh, all right.
No, they're buried, the people for whom Cartwright is probably named for are buried in the Windmill Cemetery. Captain Frederick Cartwright and his son Clifton. I'll tell you about it later.
Thank you.
Both yours.
Captain,
Relatives.
Relatives.
funny.
Little Joe and Hoss.
Okay, is there anybody else who wishes to address the board?
When the middle section is
Okay,
covered by water,
thank you.
then no one's going to right?
Once again, I neglected the roll call. Could you please,
Francis Bach,
here,
Bill Taylor, Rick Drew,
Here.
Brian Burns.
Here.
John Aldred,
Here.
Jim Grimes, Del Cullum,
Present?
Susan McGraw-Keeber,
Here.
and Susan Vorpal,
Absent.
absent. Okay, thank you.
All right, let's move on to new business, aquaculture, DEC Conditional Shellfish Harvesting Program. John, I think you've been working on that.
Yeah, I got in touch with the DC about this, and basically they're offering to consider one area currently closed to shellfishing year-round for a conditional program, which would mean that under the proper rainfall conditions in the winter, this area could be open to shellfishing. It requires quite a bit of lead work in terms of assessing the bacterial counts in the water under rainfall conditions for a period of time before they'll consider opening this. So I've volunteered to sort of take this on, and this will begin probably in November, and we'll have, depending on the area that we want to open or consider for opening, or for the conditional program, there'll be up to 15 tests that have to be done on water quality above a certain rainfall amount, which is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 3/4 of an inch in 24 hours. So it's a pretty high bar. So this is going to take a little while. So if we get going this winter, I think we'll probably take most of the winter to do the lead work, and then probably next year, next winter will be the conditional the conditional program can take place. I've reached out to the Fisheries Advisory Committee to see what they think about what would be the best area to open. I think that there's 3 areas in Accabonac that I think would be good candidates, and the northern tip of Accabonac is one of the closed areas. I know that has supported scallop population in the past, so that would be my pick, but I kind of wanted to put this out to the Bay community who uses these areas and see what they thought and get some feedback. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be able to recommend an area and then get going with the DC on these tests.
John, these areas that are closed, are they prone to pollutants, road runoff, high levels of nitrogen, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, they're more or less backwaters.
All right.
The bottoms of the harbors, the tips of coves. You know, for example, Accabonac, the very southern tip is closed. In Cove leading into Pussy's Pond, part of that is closed, and the very northern end. It's an area that doesn't necessarily get as much flushing as the other areas.
Okay.
And, you know, may have more runoff, like Pussy's Pond is, all the watershed comes in there.
I mean, the north end is interesting because we have been opening the culvert to improve water exchange in that area. So that we saw a small improvement as per Dr. Gobler's study in that area. So maybe that's a good candidate. I mean, any bottomland that we can open in the winter to provide more protected areas for shellfishing in the winter is a good idea.
And Lisa Tettelbach, the DEC, did say that northern area of Accabonac, you'll need 15 samples runs to get enough data to determine the opening, but she said they already have 7 or 8 from that northern area. So there have been times of high rainfall when that northern section has tested below the bacteriological limit that's, you know, would tend to close it.
And because it costs roughly $20,000 to open up the culvert, my question to anybody here, is in fact the CPF money earmarked for projects like that?
possible. It's still evolving, so I think Bill has been on that committee, and when he's back, we should maybe
Okay,
speak with him about that and see if this is something we want to pursue and tie it together. It might be a good connection.
all right.
You might be a little inflated on the cost, but,
What, 20,000?
yeah,
That's what it was last time we did
Was
it.
it?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It started, the first time we had it done, it was 17 and change, and then it was like 19, and the last one was 20.
Okay.
We're looking maybe to put it out to bid this time as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's, it's always good to get the right guy to do it, and it is a pretty big project. I mean, but I'd love to, find the money somewhere other than our bank account.
Yeah.
We don't have deep pockets. We have a lot of important things to do.
One other thing on this conditional program, a rain gauge has to be maintained. I maintain a rain gauge at my house. The rain gauge has to be maintained within 3 miles of the harbor that the conditional area is in. I'm 3.2 miles from Accabonac. So they have to tap.
We may-
Just move your house a little
Francis
bit.
Or Bill. The
How far
office
away
is,
is the office?
I
Too
think
far?
the office is too far.
Okay. well,
We may
I
find
can-
there are
I
other
can do it.
volunteers who are interested as well, John. There's a lot of environmental interest around that.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. It has to be maintained
24/7.
every day, and it has to be, every day the reading has to be
Reported.
communicated to the DC.
Wow, that's a big
And
responsibility.
there is a course to take, which I
Well,
volunteered,
yeah, that's
down the line.
not the rain gauge. Not a course to read the rain gauge.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we can discuss that.
That's good stuff.
All right.
And,
thanks,
yeah,
John.
Susan has volunteered also to take the training necessary to take the water samples and stuff in
Right.
case.
You get
as a
state
sort of
certified.
Backup.
Yeah, nice.
Something new to learn.
Yep, yep.
All right, and then the other thing we received was Suffolk County Shellfish Aquaculture Lease Program is putting together a 10-year review advisory group. And they've invited the trustees to be a part of that group. John has volunteered to also
No, I think
take that part.
that's really important that the trustees be a part of this time around. I think when the original program was introduced, the trustees were not an active participant, and I think that would be a big improvement to have the trustees involved this go-round.
What was the title, of the program?
The Suffolk County Agriculture Lease Program.
Okay.
Okay, and these are the same, this is the same program where they put the,
Oysters?
yeah,
This is
the
the-
oysters
the-
off
yeah.
of,
Yeah,
Flopsies?
yeah.
Promised land.
Yeah.
It's floating
Well,
gear.
These
Yes,
are
yes.
10-acre plots available for
Sure.
lease from the county,
Yeah, we definitely want to be in on that.
commercial growing.
Cool.
The town also will have a representative, Barley from the Shellfish Hatchery will represent the town.
Okay.
Good.
I'm not sure about the fishing community. There were some representatives from the Baymen's Association at the time, when the lease program was originally debated and formed. Arnold Leo was on the committee, so I'm not sure if the county has reached out to the commercial fishing community to put a representative on the 10-year review. But I can find that out.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John.
Brian, go ahead, my note.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah, it was helpful. Thank you. Oops.
thank you.
Okay, Georgica, 25 Cove Hollow Farm Road.
I have the package right here. I had an opportunity to look at it, and Mr. Grimes and I will be visiting this early next week, and we will report. We'll meet with the agent, and please have it on the agenda
Okay,
the next time
will
we
do.
meet. Okay, thank you.
I mean, it looks like, well, it says the construct an access walkway, but it looks like it includes a dock also.
Yeah, I saw
Or a
that.
dock,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We'll get back to you on that.
Nat Peak, Lazy Point, Pamela Keene, 177 Shore Road, wants to sublet her lease.
I had the opportunity to look at the lease. I spoke to Arlene. I believe everything's in order.
It's a renewal.
It's a renewal, and I would make a motion that we accept it.
Do they have the affidavit of domicile?
Everything is in order, yes.
Great.
Correct, Only?
Yes, I
Thank
have
you.
the affidavits, domicile, et cetera.
Yep,
All the paperwork.
it's a renewal.
Does anyone want a second?
I'd second it. John, you got it?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Eastman, 232 Shore Road, they want to close out their trustee permit.
That was a renovation, Francis?
Yes.
Has someone from the committee been down there?
I have. I mean, it appears to be done tastefully, and I would say we should close it out.
You want to make a motion, Bob?
I would, yes, I'll make a motion that we close out the Eastman permit at 232 Shore Road.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gardner's Bay, Nappy, case 398. I have not a clue.
No, that's David.
Wasn't that David? Yeah.
I didn't know how to write it.
Oh, that's
I just
you,
wrote
okay.
Case number.
All right.
and
Case
I-
398,
Yeah.
code name.
All right.
Does that you mean you have 397 other cases you're working on?
Aye.
3 Mile Harbor, 205 3 Mile Harbor Road, ZBA hearing.
John, do you have any thoughts on that?
That's apparently a tear down, rebuild, and it doesn't really have anything to do with Trustee Waters. They're not proposing anything on the beach or bluff or in the easement area behind the bluff.
So they're behind the setbacks, as far as you know?
You mean the construction?
Are
Yeah,
they
the
looking for
construction.
variances or anything near the harbor?
I believe that they need a variance, for the construction, the tear down, the construction of the house, from the ZBA. Nothing from the trustees necessarily. They're not proposing any work from the upland to the beach. There's already a walkway there that won't change. And
I would say
my
that.
understanding is that from Jim, who's familiar with the property, that the high point of the property is in effect the bluff. So it drains away from the harbor.
Good.
So, I was going to look at the file on Monday, but if I don't find anything in the file that's seems of concern, which I don't expect to, I didn't think there was any point
Fine.
in really having to weigh in with the ZBA on it.
All right, John.
So do you
Okay,
want to
good.
table this, or are we saying it's not applicable?
You could
He'll
table
get
it.
the- yeah,
I'll
you
just
can table it,
verify-
sure.
Verify what happened. at the
Yeah,
next
that'd be
meeting.
fine.
Okay. Committee reports, Accabonicog Creek. We did Savage and Simpkins.
And Ice Candor, I have gone to see, I've spoken to the agent, that's Michael DeLelio, and that is going to be heard by the ZBA October 30th, so.
Mike's the agent?
No, he's the TA.
Excuse me,
He's the
a
planner.
technical, yes,
Planner.
excuse me, technical planner.
Okay.
So I've discussed this with him, I did go to the property, it's tabled until October 30th, it was postponed from the last ZBA meeting. And I essentially agree with the technical advisory report, and I'll go to the ZBA meeting and report back to you.
Okay.
It's a beautiful pergola, which is in the back, and was built on top of the existing patio that was previously approved when the house was built. There is a little perch toward the cliff side, the bluff side, and they'd like to see that made smaller. It was much larger before, and the pergola is fine, it's lovely, it's got wisteria on it, and I don't think that there is an issue with that so much as the, perhaps revegetation is going to be suggested to the planning board, but other than that, it's really about the little platform that's on the bluff at the moment, so.
No work on trustee property? No,
Excuse me?
no work proposed
No,
touching trustee property?
no.
Okay. Beaches, right?
Okay, Adam Young?
Adam Young, also postponed until October 30th. It was postponed because they had it in for the pool and patio, and that was done 2 years ago. So They've postponed it to October 30th, and that is with, the issue now is the dock. So I'm going to go in and speak to the planning board and zoning board about, they have to change it on the website. It's still showing that it's the pool and not the current issue. So I will be going in to speak to the planner about that and see exactly where it is. But he's had apparently several issues with the property over time that he's had to adjust, and I think he's looking for CO, final CO.
And he has issues with his dock at this time?
That's the current issue. that
Does
the
he have a
dock-
trustee permit?
Yes, he does. Well,
Has
he
a
has
dock?
a, I don't know if he needs a permit for that. He has a dock, is that what you meant, the dock permit from us? He doesn't have a new application with the trustees for new work, but we've been charging him a dock fee.
Okay, so he has an
He has a
existing
legal dock.
relationship.
We have a file on him, yes.
Okay.
His dock bill is
Pictures I
up to
took,
date.
if you'd like to see.
Great.
I'm
Thank
sorry, I'm not sure if I got which one you meant.
No, that's great, thank you,
Yeah.
Ellen.
Yeah. But no application to us, so if he is doing something with the dock, he has to
Yeah.
put in a,
Okay. So that's his dock, then?
yeah.
That's actually his neighbors.
That's his neighbors.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm actually on it. There should be pictures, that's toward the end.
Is that his?
Yeah, that's his dock.
Okay. So if he was doing anything
So I have
with
to
the
go
dock-
see exactly what it is because the technical report is not out yet. I only had the pool report from a long time ago. Anybody else
Sure.
want to see this?
What's the issue with his dock? You said there's a.
I have to find out because it's not on the website yet. The only thing that was posted, it was from 2 years ago. It was the wrong application. That application had been satisfied. So until I see what it is, I won't know, but it's October 30th, the ZBA hearing. So I'll
Check it out.
check it out.
If you get any more information before the next meeting, it would be great to
Okay.
hear if there is anything with
Okay.
regard to the
I'll-
dock.
I will let you know.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, move on to beaches. Last meeting, there was a resolution. This came under beaches because this is deep water. Joint council, joint defense agreement with the councils. It was presented and then reviewed and reworded a bit, so are you guys ready for it to be presented?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Whereas both trustees, freeholders, and commonality, the East Hampton, town of East Hampton, and the town of East Hampton are going to apply for intervenor status in Deepwater Wind South Fork's New York State Public Service Commission Article 7 application. And whereas both trustees and the freeholders in commonality, the town of East Hampton and the town of East Hampton have retained outside law firms to serve as legal counsel for the respective boards. And whereas the trustees believe it is in the best interest of the public for the respective outside legal counsels to share limited pertinent information while still retaining and preserving attorney-client confidentiality and protections, now therefore be it resolved that the trustee clerk is hereby authorized to enter into a joint defense agreement in a form of an approved trustees of the freeholders and commonality of East Hampton to provide for a limited sharing pertinent information and open dialogue between councils for the respective boards with respect to the Deepwater Wind South Forks New York State Public Service Commission Article 7 application. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that. We went over it pretty in depth, and council edited it accordingly, so I would second it.
Now that, excuse me, now that it looks like Deepwater has sold, or their intention is to sell to this company, Orsted, I believe?
Yes.
I would only check, I'm okay with the body of this, but I would check with our new attorney if in fact this is applicable to the new owner. Or, you know, does that change anything? I don't think it does.
Well, this is an agreement between
The
the
two
town special
attorneys.
counsel and our special counsel. It's not deep water at all.
Right, but it says
True.
Deepwater, so I agree with Brian that perhaps we need to change that to the new company.
Well,
And it
but
is South
we've been
Fork
dealing
Wind.
with Deepwater.
It's still
We weren't
Deepwater
dealing
Winds.
with
Still
Shaw.
There's
You know
still
what?
the-
It's-
There's still
it's
the
just a thought. You can
applicants
leave it
to
that
Article
way.
7.
I don't know.
Okay,
We're
and
just
that's the legal name that
Otherwise,
they're
it
going
also,
under?
It's the
also.
same company.
the-
No, I know, but they've been purchased by, and I'm just
Not
wondering
yet,
if,
it hasn't closed. and
Oh, it
may not-
hasn't?
May not close
Oh.
until the end, the beginning of the
It
year.
requires
Oh, okay.
a
It's okay.
federal review, I believe.
okay,
So we have a motion?
Antitrust
All right.
review. And a second.
All in favor?
aye.
I oppose, or I dissent. I'm,
Abstaining?
yeah, I abstain.
Okay.
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 Wait, do we have 5 votes then? One,
Yes.
2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect,
yeah.
okay. Thank you, Dell.
Sure.
Yeah, Jim has been quiet, he's under the table. Jim, you all right?
Okay, Dell, you want to talk about trash cans?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna brush over that and go right to the subject. I don't want to just skip over it. You know my intentions is to get the cans off the beach. I'm just not ready to elaborate more on it right now. I'm basically still wicked against it, and I'm really want your support on it. And I'll leave it at that for now, okay? I'm working on another presentation or another attempt to bring it up in another fashion, to maybe get some different response from my colleagues. However, if I can go right into, I'm not sure if the public's right to beach access, was that me? Was
Yeah,
that
you asked
my
me to
thing?
put something
Okay,
on.
well,
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the ownership of the beaches that the village uses and this issue with them proposing law on our beaches. You know, I don't feel comfortable with the village claiming these beaches are theirs. I think if we let that go on, if we haven't let it go on too long, I think if we do, it sets a bad precedent. Kind of ties in with the Hicks Island thing. I mean, if people that don't, in Hicks Island's case, I understand the state owns the beaches, but if they were to put the signs on trustee beaches, keeping people off state property, you know, I would have the same objection. Being on the roads committee and seeing how many encroachments we're running into, it seems so common that we need to be a little bit more aware and conscious and corrective on who's claiming our properties. And I believe, once again, you know, okay, not maybe. I have a gripe with the village on several levels. And this is just another one, okay? Here's a brochure that I get from the Chamber of Commerce, and it's handed out. It's also at the village office. And it's the Village of East Hampton brochure on their beaches. And as soon as you open it up, the first thing it says about our beaches is, there are 5 beaches in the Village of East Hampton. All are owned and operated by the village. And I think that wording is incorrect, and I think it should be changed. It's also on their website.
Who's that from?
This is the village's brochure for their rules and regulations on what they claim to be their beaches, also their parking areas, which I understand is theirs. But that's where they need to draw the line. Which kind of trails back into the trash can issue, and I've told you before that when this issue came up to the village before, they blatantly told the trustees at one point that they weren't going to remove those cans. And here we are revisiting it again, and in a not so easier fashion, maybe it's because of me or not, regardless, they're claiming ownership. You go down to Main Beach, you have this, as soon as you pull to the front of the end of the parking lot where the beach starts, there's a huge sand fence there. Now, I've not been able to find any application or permission or permits for the village to erect this fencing. I don't even know what it's for, quite honestly. It stands directly in front of the parking area. And maybe you all know, but I'm not
Is it
clear.
there
on-
year-round or just in the off-season?
It's there year-round, and I do know that they were asked to remove it at one point, and they did remove it. And a year later, it was put up again.
I thought they
I
just put
believe-
those fences up in the winter. They just put them up in the winter.
To keep the sand on the beach rather than in the parking lot.
Del,
Yeah, that's what I
after
was
Sandy,
throwing in the parking lot.
after Sandy, that beach took quite a bit of damage. And I do know that they built a bulkhead in front of that parking area. And I believe they put the fence up to build the sand up on top of that over
Okay.
the off-season.
All right, if that's the case, that's fine. I know that they were asked to remove it at one point. This was information given to me by a former trustee. And it was removed and then put up again the following year. Whether or not there's a reason for it, then I would be, open to understanding that. I don't, even if you tell me it had to do with Sandy. Isn't that 6 years ago?
Yeah, but
Is
regardless,
there a
they're just trying to build
I
up.
Is it a
I understand.
reoccurring,
I understand, but still,
prevention method?
doesn't there have to, does the village not have to go through a proper application?
They should unless we have an agreement,
Of course.
of which I'm not aware of.
Okay. Well, again, look, my main point is, again, claiming what is rightfully the trustee's beach and not having others claim ownership.
I think you have a really good point, Del, and I agree with you. And I think we might have an opportunity at this point with this vaping issue to try to reestablish our relationship here. Because I think this vaping issue, there's a legal issue here. And I think we might, ask our attorney to talk to the village's attorney and clarify how the village is making law on Trustee Beach without
our input,
from the
right.
trustees, which they say they can do. And I don't know if that's
I've
necessarily the
been,
case.
I've been doing a lot of research, and I have a lot of information, and I think I can clear it all up. But rather, what I've done is I've contacted Chris Carrillo and explained these measures to him, along with Susan, as we met at the trustee office. Rick was aware of it as well. And we discussed this with Chris, and Chris is on board to review the information that the information that I've compiled during my research about this issue. And I'm putting together the package. So rather than dive right into it tonight, I basically wanted to just introduce you to the issue and then leave it at, I am very heavily going to follow up with this over the next 2 weeks with Chris Carrillo. And I think you're going to be interested to find the information that I've come up with. And once we can get it all confirmed, and of course, there's one mystery. What is this one law that the village was able to bypass the trustees with? There's a miscommunication that it's the homeroom law, section 77 of the beaches. I'm under the impression that they're saying that there's something else that they were able to bypass us.
Yeah,
And I want to know,
public health
yeah,
and safety
we want to know what that is.
Yeah.
The one problem with these relationships is that we cannot legislate. So we depend on both the town board and the village board to legislate health and safety on the beaches. We're supposed to be a part of that procedure. And I feel that there was an end run done with this vaping law. We didn't have the opportunity to even discuss vaping on the beach,
Well,
because they didn't ask about that.
Regardless of
No, but-
the intention, it was presented to us as on the pavilion.
Correct.
not
Well, that's
on
why
the
we didn't
beach.
have the
And it
opportunity.
was
They did not
passed
ask
on
the question of
Right.
what they
I
were
have
intending
a
to
letter
do.
from them.
And the town and the trustees worked out an ordinance. It's actually in the town ordinance on how this is done, where if the town wants to pass an ordinance on the beaches, they have to have our input and our agreement. I don't know that we have the same situation with the village. We should, and that may be the goal that we should set.
Well, from my understanding, we weren't really recognized by the village up until this lawsuit, which you'll all be
What year is that?
familiarized with. December 2012. And it was, without getting
What is the
deep into
lawsuit?
it, without, I'm gonna give you it. I'll give you the whole pack. I'm gonna send everybody the whole package to review before next meeting. But basically, after we won this lawsuit against the town,
The village.
the town, it ensured, it let the village know that we did own these beaches to a point where we would win a lawsuit if there was an argument over ownership. You'll understand it once I explain it to you in its entirety. And since then, or after that, we got together, the trustees apparently, there is no documentation, but from my understanding, having spoke with Diane McNally, at that point, we got with the village and came up with this code, with these codes. We did it along with them, okay? And that's the way.
No documentation.
But there's no documentation of it. Now, I've gone back.
So 20 years from now, who are they gonna call to confirm this? You know, that's why something has to be legislated where it's required that we have a say in the
Yeah.
ordinances,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know? It's,
So anyway, to conclude, let me put this package of information together. I'm short one document, and I'm going to have it all scanned so I can email you everything. And it's really interesting. And hopefully, together, again, we can straighten this out, and then, you know, move forward as we see fit. But I think, you know, as being on the roads committee, and again, running into encroachments and problems over and over and over again. In fact, I don't think we've not run into a problem on each property we've investigated so far. That I think we gotta nip these things. I mean, you know, nicely, however we gotta do it. But we can't have folks claiming ownership of trustee property. Because I think if it goes on too long, people get the idea that it is owned by these other entities. And yeah, then 20 years later, it's gonna be a lot more difficult to convince folks that we do, in fact, own these issues. So we have, Chris is gonna be on it with me, Susan, Rick, if you know, we'll have input as well, the whole roads committee. But I'm happy to say that I've caught Chris's interest, and he's willing, thankfully, to review what I've put together, and I hope you all will review it as well. I'll get it to you as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you.
okay. Education, community outreach?
Yeah, I know Susan's, Keeber's been doing a lot of outreach to different schools, and we had a a great shellfish seeding event this past, was it Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday afternoon, over at the Hands Creek launching ramp. We had about 20 students from the middle school. John was there, Susan was there, and some other volunteers, Gina from Paddle Diva, some other teachers were there and advisors from the school. John Ryan,
Armin, Mrs. Armin.
and we seeded 30,000 juvenile oysters in the area, so it was a nice event. I think it was on the cover of the Star this week, a picture of Barley educating some of the children about the benefits of oysters and the process for growing them. So it's nice to see, children learning about our waters and our shellfish, and I think Susan's onto something by reaching out to some other educational groups, and maybe we can get some other groups involved in these, field exercises, maybe visiting the shellfish hatchery to see the spawning process. So I think there's some great things going on.
It was a wonderful afternoon, I have to say. It was just
fun.
terrific. Lots of pictures, which I would like to get up on the website, which
you
is
go.
another issue. I thought it was terrific. There was a lot of enthusiasm. The papers came, as you said, to take pictures, and the kids were coming up on their paddle boards, and we piled the oysters in, and it was really a wonderful event. So I thank you, Rick, for organizing that
Thank
with
you.
Barley. I have been working to broaden our education committee's effort in community outreach with Montauk School, East Hampton High School, Springs School, Amagansett, John Marshall. And John Marshall this year is not able to work with us on a presentation, and this is also in collaboration with the Shellfish Hatchery. We'll do that together. But Montauk is interested, East Hampton High School, the high school kids with the science programs. So I think we're gaining some momentum here where people, the school administrations are finding out about us. And of course, the Rysam Scholarship Fund is paramount to our presentation, and having them understand that by getting into the schools and teaching the kids, especially when they're young, they'll be already interested in caring about the waterways and so forth. So I'm working on that and I've opened it up to whenever is obviously best for them. So over the next well, I'm hoping sooner than later, but over the course of the year, I've asked the high school to allow us to come in sooner than later so that they can have the interested kids from science classes who wish to write to us for the Rysam Scholarship Fund, give some time to get going and be thoughtful about what they write to us. Then the balloon fish t-shirts, which I brought in a couple of things I've been working on and would like to continue working on, Arlene. We all know that we have this t-shirt that we sold at the Clam, the basic one, but we've had a lot of requests at the Clam contest for extra large and for large, and we kind of have run out of some sizes, so I'd like to ask you, I might as well just hold it up here, ask if we could order some more. Oh, over here? Well, hi. Okay. That's the balloon t-shirt.
Very nice.
And it's in 100% cotton, as you know,
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be pure. And we definitely need some little folks. We've had a lot of requests
And
for
slightly
little
larger.
kids.
Yeah, cute.
So we have nothing like this now.
Right.
So I actually made up samples on a company that I work with, which I had them make sweatshirt.
Oh,
So I made a
nice.
sweatshirt up, thinking it's year-round, and I'm
What
pricing
size is
some
that?
stuff out. It's your size. It's a large.
And I'm an extra large.
You're an extra large? Well, it's a
Thanks
size
anyway.
large, but
That's cool.
I wanted to run this by you and ask you what you thought about sweatshirts, depending upon pricing. We seem to have a better price through my company than we had from the one that made the original ones. So I'd like to ask if you would be interested in
Does that have a hood?
no hoodie. You know what? It's more for the hoodie. And so I'm trying to do this on, women may not like the hoodie because it ruins their hair. I don't know. Or maybe it protects their hair. But I looked at zippered sweatshirts as well, and that's more money. So I'm trying to be economical. And I priced out, I think this is around 20-something dollars to make. And we could sell them for something more, 20 plus. But I definitely would like to order some little Tigers, little kid stuff, because we have, and Barley, now his whole family is in the T-shirts. We gifted him.
I would make a motion that you go ahead and speak to Lori, because she's got some good history with regards to stock. And go ahead and purchase what you think would be reasonable, including trying out some of the sweatshirts. That's fine.
Small run.
Yeah,
Small run of
Is there
sweatshirts.
small run on the sweatshirts.
Is there a minimum order on?
No, no minimum. So I was just playing today and ordering, you can order various different sizes, but extra large seems to be a size that we did not have at the clam contest, and none of the toddler things, and we have some back orders.
Yes, actually, a lot of people went on a wait list. They wanted,
Don't they run small from that other
These?
company?
yeah, they
From the
did,
other company,
yes.
but this company is different, so I was able to price them out, and I work with them all the time making different products, so I
All
like
right,
the
we have a
quality.
motion on the floor.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right, so is there a budget that we're looking
We'll
at
do a
again?
number.
We'll do the numbers?
Why don't we do it, we had authorized 100 units last time, so if we can authorize 100 units, and then we'll work
How
on
many,
it.
10
how
or
many have you
15
sold?
sweatshirts.
How many have you sold to date?
A lot. Lori just did the count, more than half.
You know the good news about
We've
this?
donated
It's money that
$1,000
comes in,
into
and
the
then we
Rice
make
and
money, so in the long run, it doesn't cost us
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So whatever the responsible number is, based on what you just said, 100 units, is that right?
Yeah, they don't,
$1,000
Not to
her
exceed.
company also has
sale
had
of
some
the t-shirts.
40% offs if we time it.
Okay.
You know, you order today, 40% off.
So
and,
give me a number, what do you,
yeah.
what you
If we
cap
do
it at?
100 units, cap it at the top, or
You
60, whatever you think.
No, so, we
Oh,
talking,
dollar-wise, you wanna cap it at 1,000 or something?
so cap it at $1,000?
Okay, that's
And
better.
see what you
yeah.
get out of that.
Arlene just said we put in 1,000 to the Risum Fund.
Yeah, we've
on the
already made
t-shirts.
1,000 for the rice.
Awesome.
So there we go. we
Right?
matched.
Yeah, that's fine. So, you know, work in that $1,000
Making the
budget.
motion,
I'll make the
and
motion.
Jill seconded it. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, thank you,
Up to
thank you.
1,000.
Vote
Up to
on it.
1,000.
Thank you very much.
Does everyone agree? You
Yes.
have to-
Yep,
All right.
All
And
right,
that takes care of the education.
thank you.
thank you. Records, internet, website, training on website for committee members?
That would be me.
Yeah, we haven't gotten together in quite a while.
I
So
know.
if we need to take it to the next level, let's try to get together and.
Yes, he will do remote training and help you expand the website pretty much free. Otherwise, if she wants intense
Yeah.
personal, it's $150 an hour. I was really surprised. It's pretty reasonable.
Well,
even
for the
from-
things that I think Susan wants to do, we can train in-house.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
I was just
start
wondering,
there.
because I know your schedule has really been very tied up,
Yep,
and I keep making files
I
and
really,
files.
I really want to see weather and time
Oh,
and
wow.
tides. I think that'd be really cool.
I think the weather
People
is
will
already on
use the website.
and you can-
and
I
see-
could have used
Check
that,
it, put a
because
link
I was
on
out
there
there.
right now. I know,
and-
Brian, you've been waiting patiently for a long time.
I think, yeah, I think it's a
You know
great
what, but it's
idea.
gotta be the tides here.
Yes,
I don't wanna know the tide on Plum Gut.
Red Hook.
I wanna
No.
know what
I-
it is of the ocean
Either
or the
3
basin.
Mile
Yeah.
or,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Egypt
Hog
Lane or
Creek, I
somewhere.
had to
Okay, you
ask
sure you don't wanna
John
just
for the
authorize-
tide chart when I went up to Hog Creek to clean my crate. And I ended up, I didn't know. And so I had to time it myself to go clean them, so I wouldn't be,
Swept
There's one other thing, on a serious note, that I'd like to mention.
Yes.
And I'm just being very transparent here. We are long overdue to get recent trustee faces
Yes.
on the website, because
Well-
it's people from, 12 years ago, and God bless them,
well,
but
every time I stick this up
This
in
is
front of your
this is a
face,
new
there's a
board.
reason. I'm doing
Yes,
this.
we have some
Okay.
I
nice
am-
photos of you, Brian.
So anytime you see this happen, I
Yeah.
just say, can I get a picture? It's for a purpose. And so I do
See if
have all
we-
these files, and I'm ready to go, but
Let's see if we can't get together on that. We'll make a
Yep.
few updates.
that would be great. And the other thing I ask John kindly, and if he's not available, I need to learn how to take the USB and put all my pictures on, so.
do that after the
do a
meeting.
presentation. Oh,
Do that
okay.
after the meeting.
All right, thank you.
it's gonna be a sleepover.
All right, let's keep moving it.
Did it in 10
Getting late.
10 seconds.
Roads Committee?
I didn't mean anything, Brian.
Yeah, Chris has prepared a series of letters to other boards and agencies that I think everyone was sent a copy of.
Yes.
He's not here tonight, so I don't want to delay this too much longer, but I do think he should be present before we vote on these letters. So if everyone could give him a good hard look before the next meeting, which is in less than 2 weeks, and we'll see if we can't get those formalized and out the door.
You're referring to these building
correct.
permits and so forth, which
Yeah,
are
just so all
excellent.
the other departments in town that weigh in on applications are freshened up and aware of trustee properties and our request for being properly noticed and considered regarding any applications that deal with trustee properties or adjacent
Yeah,
properties.
this is excellent.
I was in contact with Chris about the letter to the building inspector for building permits, which I thought might be a little too focused on roads. And I had an issue with a staircase. And so he broadened it out and, you know,
Yep,
it's
yep.
more inclusive now.
Yeah, that's great input, so.
I think, my review of the letters to the planning department, the planning board and the ZBA, I thought were fine,
Great.
right on.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I read these earlier too. I thought he did a great job with them.
All right, so before the next meeting, let's get all our input to them and,
Before administrative, I just want to, I have one quick thing I want to mention.
Oh, and I have a couple of,
You want to mention it now?
Yeah, I would like to. As,
oh, can we finish roads
oh,
first?
by all means, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Still on roads. Dr. Jason Hanks?
Yes, I know that, you know, Dell and Susan and I have been up there, and there are some present encroachments on trustee Six Pole Highway that were asked to be removed several years ago. And it may have even been with the previous owner of the property. There's some substantial landscaping, there's a driveway apron that's brick and mortar. There's electrical utilities, there's quite a lot of infrastructure that's in the Six Pole Highway property as per the stakes that are visible to delineate the property line. So in addition to that, there is a request on the table,
Is that Wayne Scott?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's off of Merchant's Path.
Yeah.
There's a request on the table to install an electronic gate for the driveway that would also be on trustee property. So we're kind of going in the wrong direction from requests that have been made to kind of clean this up. In addition, there are some legacy fences that appear to be in the road, and then there is the question of where the road goes past the Hanks property, which right now seems to be somewhat of a mystery. It goes up towards the cemetery that's on Route 114, who have they have an easement to use the road to gain access to the cemetery from the backside of the property, so don't have trucks going in and out into the
And
busy
that
street.
was also the road where, although they just had an easement, they chose to use it as a nursery. They were digging plants, potting
oh,
plants.
right, right.
So,
We don't know what they were doing with the plants, but
Did you guys get an opportunity to sit down with Rick and discuss this?
we've had some preliminary discussions, I know Chris spoke with Rick about it a little bit. And, you know, we're trying to kind of work this out, you know, in a positive and amicable manner. So Rick is away. He'll be back, I believe, next week.
Because I know he had reached out to me several months ago
Yep.
about this, and I had
And
asked him
we've
to
spoken
speak
to
to you
him,
guys.
we've
yeah.
had some good conversations about it. I think ultimately, you know, he and Chris probably will have some further conversation
Okay.
about it.
Great.
But, you know, given the history of the previous board requesting removal of the legacy items,
Mhm.
I just think it may be a little bit of a stretch to ask to install more things
well,
on
the
trustee
one,
property.
there was a gate there, there was a gate there, and they were told to remove the gate by a previous trustee board, or,
Yes.
yeah, and the gate was removed by a previous homeowner.
Right.
Now that it's under new ownership, this gentleman wants to put up a new gate, when really the crux of what was there needing to be removed was never removed completely. Just the gate was removed.
But that was the
being asked?
responsibility of the
Who's
previous
being
owner?
asked,
The previous
Yeah.
homeowner,
Yeah.
Mr. Wolf,
who's being asked by him to put up the gate?
the current owner, Mr. Hanks,
But who is he asking?
he's asking us.
He's asking for a trustee.
Right.
Right, to put up a gate on a public road.
Okay, the answer's no.
So I
Well,
think it's.
that's our basic feeling
Yeah.
as well,
It's a
but
little bit
there's
of
a
an
couple,
reach.
there's a few things like there's some sort of an electrical utility unit there.
Right.
And look, the utility company may have an easement. However, it seems to me that this unit was to operate the gate.
Does this
That's
road
no
go all the
longer
way
there.
through past the house?
Well, that's the question mark. In addition to the issues with Mr. Hanks's property, there seems to be a older stockade fence on the other side of Six Pole that's kind of in the middle of Six Pole. The old roadbed is on the other side of this fence. And if you kind of pace off 3 rod from the property stakes on Mr. Hanks's property line, the fence seems to be well within the trustee roadbed. And then as it goes further, at some point, there was a town parcel that was towards 114. So there's about 150 yards, let's say, from the current end of the Hanks property to 114. We don't know where the trustee road goes beyond the Hanks property. We do believe it connected out to 114 at some point. At some point, the town owned what is now the cemetery property, and they sold it to the cemetery, to the temple that runs the cemetery. And I have a feeling that the trustee road may have gotten lost
It's
in
not on the tax map?
all the transfers that took place
Tax maps
beyond,
aren't always correct.
I know,
beyond the
but
Hanks property. So that may be a potential research project. Rick Whalen believes it went more to the north towards Sag Harbor, which would be the best case given the expansion of the cemetery over the years, and could be, you know, out of the way of their operations.
Well, you know, the long and the short of it is, if the gentleman, in this case, or anybody for that matter, if they don't comply when shown, then we have to take them to court, you know, and I probably can't count on one hand the number of times we actually have had to do that as a body, but hopefully that won't be the case.
Yeah, let's see if we, we're gonna try and continue to have dialogue and
This is a
and work
little
it out.
more set in stone.
It sounds
For a
like it.
lack of a better
Yeah.
term, because literally, I mean, the apron for the gate, or the driveway, the beginning of the driveway, which looks like it was put there to accommodate that gate, is well on our property, as well as what I believe to be the gate utility control box, which is quite the size. I mean, half the size of this table.
And some
what does the
substantial
survey
landscaping.
show? The
The
last
survey shows
survey?
it's on our property.
It does, so,
Clearly.
His survey.
and did the utility box come after?
His
Yeah.
survey
Yeah.
shows,
So, so my question is, did the survey,
how do you
the
get that
box,
approved?
Well, the
come in-
survey,
was
whatever
the box
survey she's-
installed after the purchase and building of the residence?
No, from what I believe, the box controlled the gate
Right.
that was originally removed, because
Okay.
the trustees had to remove it.
Right,
Yeah, it comes,
but if that survey showed the trustee road there, and then they put the gate, the owner builds the gate and puts the utility box there to accommodate the function of the gate, then
So he.
it was
he's
erroneous
using
of
a
the,
spur
that
off
current,
of
that owner,
using this section.
and the installer of that box.
Absolutely. It wasn't the present homeowner's
It was the former homeowner.
problem, but now it is,
Well,
because he
buyer
owns.
beware.
Did we find an easement that either Mr. Wolf or Mr. Hanks has in place with the trustees for his current access to his property? Do you recall if Susan found that?
I don't believe so, but again, what we need to do is, at this point, is probably table this and get Susan here. She's got
I know
all the
she was digging into
information.
it.
She's got several maps. She's got a little bit more of an understanding, because of course, you know, she
Yeah,
does the
she's been
records
doing the
work and
Sounds like
gets
this
the
is a
maps
case
work.
for Steve Boner.
It may be.
Well, that's what.
Right.
We'll see where
something we
Susan
would
ends
take up,
up,
too.
see how far she can take
Yeah,
it.
let's.
Case 383.
All right, Merchants Path, anything?
I know Chris had sent out, I believe, 2 communications to the 2 most egregious property owners that really pinched the road with landscaping and fencing. And I don't know if he's gotten a reply back, But, the next meeting's coming up in 10 days, so let's, I'll reach out to him, make sure we're prepared to give the board an update, because I know we are interested in getting the highway department over there to help grade that roadbed out a little wider for the safety of
Fire
vehicle
department.
access.
Yeah, I don't want to seem disrespectful at all, but it seems to me when there's an emergency situation, as there is in this case, I would have thought this would have been done a long time ago. I mean, if there's an issue where an emergency vehicle can't make it down this road.
But I don't think we were aware of it until we got the
Right, but
complaint
once,
from Sag Harbor.
which has been several months ago, right? So I mean, like I say, I hate
Well, I think
to
there's
look naive in a
process,
situation,
well-
but when a fire vehicle not being able to access the road comes in question, it just seems to me funny that here we are, we still don't have an answer. It almost seems like, and again, I'm not trying to insinuate anything on Stephen's behalf, but you would think that maybe the town would correct the problem. I know they can't because of the fence there,
Right.
but maybe widen the road on the other side at the beginning to allow the truck to be able to at least make the turn on the
It's
road.
I will tell you from
It's our road.
personal,
Yeah.
So we're part of the
The home-
process.
the homeowner too.
And that fence is long.
If there is a,
That fence is
There's a big-
long.
if there's
big
a fire
infrastructure
and
there.
that, and the fire truck cannot get
They'll
through
take the
there,
fence.
they will not, well, we were told on the North Fork, they will not go through, they will do nothing to stop the fire of your house, and your homeowner's insurance will reflect in the,
I don't think that would occur here.
application.
Well, anyway, we are working on it. We will have an update for the next meeting.
All right, you wanted to say something before.
One quick thing, I would just, Jim's not here, I think I need to mention it to Rick. As you know, I'm on the Lazy Point Committee, and I understand you're working on, looking at the rules and regs. No?
I haven't been involved with that. Jim.
Oh, okay.
Jim's been working on that.
Yeah, I just don't, I don't wanna
Chris.
necessarily be left out of that.
I have not been part
okay.
of that conversation. I think it's you and Jim that I thought were kind
Right,
of the leaders.
so
in
I'll
that.
take that up with Jim, and I think it's really important, obviously, that any changes that are made within the committee obviously has to be presented before everybody and voted accordingly. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think everyone's looking forward to seeing, you guys bringing up, some improvements to the rules and regulations.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a couple of things I just want to add before we go to the end, if I may. Acabonic Protection Committee, they will be hosting a forum called From the Ice Age to Our Taps. It's a forum on our drinking water, and this will be held on October 30th from 5:30 PM to 7:30 PM. That will be held at Ashawa Hall. They have 4 guests. I only have 3 listed here, but Christopher Schubert will be speaking on Long Island Aquifer System as it relates to East Hampton. He's the supervisory hydrologist. Bob DeLuca, President and CEO of Group for the East End, will discuss sources of contamination of our water, past, present, and emerging. And Amy Ajushatz, forgive me if that's the incorrect pronunciation, she's a toxicologist with Suffolk County Department of Health. She'll discuss drinking water standards and safety, and I think in light of what's going on with Wayne Scott recently, this would be an excellent forum to attend. And there will be refreshments beginning at 5:30 PM. Question and answer period at 7 PM after the panel speaks at 6 PM. So it's free, it's open to the public, October 30th. Also, New York State Ocean Acidification Task Force. I'm going to attend this, and I thought I would share it with the rest of you. November 1st, 6:30 PM to 8:30 PM. It will be held at South Campus, Stony Brook University. And they are working to assess the impacts of ocean acidification on the ecological, economic, and social well-being of the state of New York. So I thought that might be very interesting. It doesn't say who is doing it. It's the Department of Environmental Conservation, so DEC is presenting. And one last thing, I was out cleaning my crate of oysters in their bed in Hog Creek, and a family of paddleboarders came by, and I thought it was you at first, leading the way, Rick. And this young man's name is Ben Shapiro. He lives on Isle of Wight. I think we had gone up there to see his Phragmites, he's on the pond there. I think we went 19 Isle of Wight Road. And he has noticed that there is a sewer, which we had all seen when we went there, opening that collects street water runoff. It's between 131 and 133 Isle of Wight, and it's feeding directly into the pond.
Don't drink it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Don't
not a
drink it.
grate at the sewer opening, he writes.
Trash in it.
Nearest the pond in this area, and it's covered in trash, plastic bags, chip bags, bottles of water, cans, and so forth. So I told him that I would go up and take a look, and if anybody would like to join me.
Well, Susan, you
To see
should
it?
speak to Mark Abramson or Kim,
Mm-hmm.
Natural Resources. They've been working on that for a while.
Okay.
There's a lot of road drains from those subdivisions that drain into Hog Creek, and they've been
Crazy.
an issue, and
Yeah, I
They're
think,
trying to
they've worked
get
on that for a
cleaned up.
long time.
Yeah.
so I did speak with Ben earlier today, just let him know that I got the email, and I would bring it to our attention.
Yeah.
So I'll follow up and speak to Mark Abramson and Kim Shaw. So I just wanted to make you alert of that, and see if there's something that we can do about it. So I'll look into it.
Yep,
All right?
it's good, it's good work.
Okay.
All right, administrative payment of the bills. East Hampton Star, $490, LCC ads, LCC.
Largest claim
Largest
contest.
ads. Optimum, 167.65. Press Group, 468. That's also for the same clam contest. Ready Fresh, 59.54 for water. Riverhead Building Supply, 42.34. Seacoast Enterprises, $1,022.21. Staples, $39.50. Star Island Yacht Club, $556.07.
And what is that last one for?
Right.
It's gotta be the pump out boat.
Oh, okay. I make a motion, we pay the bills.
Second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes.
I did have one comment on page 3.
September 24th?
September 24th,
Okay.
yes. 136 Merchants Pass was the first letter that Mr. Carrillo sent out on Merchants Path. The owners of the property have hired trustee attorney Rick Whalen to represent them.
Not trustee attorney.
I thought, former trustee attorney. I thought Mr. Whalen was actually retained by the Southampton trustees to do research on some of the Southampton Town trustee
He
roads.
might have, I had that in my notes, but I believe, I did it from the LTV show.
Okay.
And I believe that, Chris Grillo also said that. But if you approve them subject to my verifying that, I can
Yeah,
send you a
that's-
copy.
I just
of
wasn't
that.
sure if he was, if we've heard back from any of the homeowners on Merchants Path
I
yet.
thought that that's what he said, from watching the video, but I could have
Okay,
made a
if
mistake.
we could just clarify that
Would it be
one
the first
point.
time? It's
No, no, it's
possible.
Is there a reason we have to describe him as former trustee?
Oh, we don't have to, I'll just take that out.
I know
Okay.
he's working for the
Yeah, I would just say
homeowner.
attorney Rick Whalen.
Attorney Rick Whalen.
Yeah.
I'll,
Let's just
I will
make
have
sure
the
that he
Records
is-
Committee, I will have you, Rick Drew, receive this, and Francis,
Okay.
that one paragraph.
Okay.
I'll pull it up.
So I'm okay with approving the minutes, subject to clarification of that one paragraph at the bottom of page 3.
Yeah, I can do that on Monday morning.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Financial report, anybody have a chance to look at that, September 30th?
I had an opportunity to go through it. It appears to be in order, and I would ask that, without any objection, that we accept it. That's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, report of the clerk. The DEC has announced their opening of the scholarship season. And traditionally, we will open ours the week after. Last year, we opened it on a Sunday to allow people to get in there without power equipment. I think it was an overwhelming success. I
Very well
Still
received.
hear a lot of feedback about that.
Very well received by the community. A great day on the water.
Absolutely.
It was like a scallop festival.
Yeah, it was.
Down in 3 Mile.
Like Woodstock.
So I would like to offer a resolution that we do the same thing again this year.
Second.
What are the dates?
Well, I'll read the resolution, okay?
whereas, oh boy, Section 213-18 of the East Hampton Town Code recognizes the trustee's authority to vary the permissible dates of takings of scallops. And whereas Section 213-12 of the East Hampton Town Code permits the taking of scallops from trustee waters between the third Monday in October and March 31st of each year. And whereas for the year 2018, the state has delayed the opening of scallop season in state waters to November 5th, 2018. And whereas the trustees' waters have traditionally been open for scalloping shortly after the opening of state waters. Now therefore be it resolved that despite provisions of Section 213-12 of the East Hampton Town Code, scallops may not be taken from trustee waters from between 12:01 a.m. on Monday, October 15th, 2018, and 12:01 a.m. on Sunday, November 11, 2018. For this year, the season for taking of scallops from trustee waters shall open on Sunday, November 11, 2018, and end on March 31st, 2018. Be it further resolved that the reason for the delayed open,
I'm sorry, 2019?
18. Oh, yeah. no, it should be
March,
19.
yeah, it should be 19. Yep, thank you, Bedell. Okay, so it'll be, it will close on March 31st, 2019. And be it further resolved that the reason for the delayed opening is to permit additional time for scallops to spawn, and be it further resolved that the trustees wish to call the public's attention to the fact that bushel bags sold by the trustees for a nominal fee must be utilized in harvesting all shellfish, including scallops, as set forth in Chapter 213 of the Town Code. And be it further resolved that except as set forth above, all other provisions of the Chapter 2213 shall remain in effect. And be it further resolved, this resolution shall take effect upon the filing of the same with East Hampton Town Clerk and posting as set forth in Section 213-18 of the Town Code, and shall expire on November 11, 2018. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, in short, scallop season will open on Sunday, November 11th.
Very good.
All right,
I have a
and
question about dredging permits. Is there an update on progress of, like, I think we have Fresh Pond,
I
we need a
think Bill
permit.
said he was working on that, and he was.
Bill and Jim were, I think, gonna get together. They're both absent tonight, but,
Jim went through the,
I spoke to Bill earlier today, when he called to say he wouldn't make it tonight, and he said he would be working on that permit specifically over the weekend.
so hopefully we'll have an update at the next meeting. We need to get busy on that, and if we need to form another committee or get harbor management on it, we really need to jump in with both feet right now.
Yeah, I'd be willing to put some work into it, but I just
Yeah.
haven't done it before, so I need some
Yep, yep.
guidance.
So,
It shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, the template's there. It's just a matter of, you know.
replicating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, changing the dates.
And if we run into problems, I would suggest we strongly consider having an agent do it.
Right, well, let's see where we're at by the next meeting. I think we need to have some clear communication as to where we are by the next meeting.
Okay.
All right.
It seems like we should get it in sooner rather than later.
I'd say within the
based on our
within the next 30 days, we need to get it
Well,
in.
we also need one for the culvert.
culvert too.
And the inlet maintenance, I believe, as well. I think we have 3.
That
that-
one, Jen?
I thought that one ended as well.
What inlet,
Acabana. Let's double check that one, too.
Yeah, check that one. I thought there was, might have been a couple of years.
Did that one go to
on it.
2020?
I think so.
All right, we'll double check
But
it.
it should be checked, yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else?
Motion to close?
Second.
All in favor?
I'm always.
Thank you,
Quick it up,
everybody.
Fully